You're not.
All right. I mean,
You're-
now, I
You're a
guess.
little darkened too. Let's see. There you go. Let there be light. Oh. Well, I already told Lauren basically how the bits worked initially. This weekend, we had a couple of things that we were doing,
Thanks, Chris.
and they were all related to hard spot. We had a bunch of quartz that was in the way, giving us a problem. So I just published a video. Theoretically, it should be up there. Did anyone notice that latest video? Is it published and visible? Because I don't want to risk screwing up the live stream. Not that that would ever happen out. Must be talking about you and Eva or something. I don't know. But anyhow.
Oh, blind dude.
So, well, that's how come.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so we had this course that was just giving me headaches. And haven't seen it pop up yet, huh? Figures. But anyhow, so Lauren made me a couple of modified demo hammer bits where they were narrower than normal chisel bits with hard facing on the tip and ground to nice sharp edges and stuff. And the one for the Hilti was the one I kept using. I tried both of them out on the quartz, and it basically wasn't terribly impressed. They did do better than the non-specialized bits, but that quartz is just some tough stuff. And so I continued using the Hilti bit because, quite frankly, the Hilti is a hell of a lot easier to use than the Bosch. And if you don't have to use the Bosch, it's best not to because it'll beat you up.
It will beat you up with authority.
Yep. Yeah, blind dude. So anyhow, we went to the Sierra Blaster option on that that really tough quartz vein. I don't know about, what's that, 5 inches?
Yeah.
5 inches thick. We have, I don't know, 25. Hey, Richard.
Hey, Richard.
Of the bits from Sierra Blaster. I bought another 20 of them not too long ago. No, they come in 20s. I mean, in 10s. Sorry, you buy
10 packs.
Yeah, 10 packs. And they're quite reasonable. Like 11-inch bits or 6 something or other, call it $7 each. And I think it was 14 or 16-inch bits, I forget. They were 7 something each. So I mean that's
not too bad.
That's quite reasonable for big giant bits. And
do they last at all?
Yeah, they last reasonably well, but not in this stuff. Hey, Tommy. The problem is they wear out so quickly, and once they get worn at all, they just won't.
Right. They don't
deal with that.
Yep. They
quartz.
don't pound anymore.
So I learned how to sharpen them with a diamond disc on an angle grinder. We tried a drill doctor. Lauren has one. We couldn't figure out how to make it grind a masonry bits.
Just an angle.
Couldn't read the instructions and make it work and figure it out. And I mean, it's like, what the heck? So I just tried. First, I tried a belt sander because it's easy to get an angle figured out.
Yeah.
And the belt wasn't hard enough material, so it was just kind of polishing it. Then I had a diamond disc for my angle grinder, and I found out that with the bit held pretty rigidly, although just in a groove and I'm holding it, with the angle grinder, I could do a reasonable job fairly easily,
just lightly touch them off,
fairly quickly, and so that's something I can do in the field too.
Right. Yep.
On
site.
Of the roughly 10 bits I used this trip, all had been resharpened. 2 didn't work too well. I didn't bother microscopically them, but 2 of them I didn't get good enough to really work very well. The others all seem to work about as good as the brand new ones.
There you go.
So I got,
Get as much life out of them as you can.
yeah, and then, I mean, just do it, and then as soon as they start really slowing down, just take them out of circuit and get a few, and then touch them up. I think I'll probably get 5 to 10 resharpenings per bit before I run out of carbide, which is not bad.
Pretty good carbide. What, an inch of carbide? Or
Oh
something
no,
on 'em?
it's only about that long.
Oh, it's really short.
Yeah, 3/8 of an inch, something like that. But as long as you got some carbide
Well, yeah.
for the edge, I think it'll work. Because I don't, just keep pounding them in where they're getting hot or anything. I have standard procedures: 5 bits, 5 seconds per bit, and rotate. And
Keep them from getting hot.
yeah, when I take the bit off, I can touch it. It's uncomfortably hot, but it won't burn me. I suppose if I just held it, it might.
Brand you.
But by the time it's back in circuit, it's barely above ambient temperature.
Sure.
So should be keeping it in a good, hey, Tricky, a good temperature range. One thing I did find out doing some tests with my kryptonite here,
Mm-hmm.
don't bear down on it.
Just let it do the work.
Push it
Yeah, hold
modestly firmly and let it hit and rebound, rotate, hit, rebound, instead of
let
pushing
the
it.
drill do the work.
And
yeah.
yes, you're not getting that abrasion against the bit. They lasted longer not pushing them hard against the rock.
Yeah.
So that worked well. Once I popped that really hard quartz out with the Sierra Blaster, then the rest of it might have been softened up a little bit or just a little bit softer, but it was more jointed and I could get it. Yeah, Richard, it was not easy. And that's one of the things we've been trying to do is how do we deal with these hard spots? Now, because of time constraints today, I mean, we didn't leave the mine until 10 o'clock this morning. I got up at 7. We already had the head frame put in the shaft. By the time I had my breakfast, got everything collected, and then got Eva out of the truck to load the stuff that goes in the truck, get everything loaded, hitched up, and gone. 3 hours start to finish. Not pushing it. So, I mean, we just got, done. I think I got back here, about 2 o'clock?
Yeah,
Something like that.
thereabouts.
Because when I take the trailer out to the ranch, I have to offload the quad so we can get to stuff.
Yeah.
And then I have to restack the buckets and tarp them so that if it rains,
Right, you're not.
it doesn't get wet. Hey, Shaggy. And so that just takes time.
Yep.
While I was out there, first thing I did was I fired up the generator and started the agitation tank agitating because it has been agitating for 4 days. Throw a couple cups of Eco Goldex in there, then do the other stuff, and then shut down the generator. So it gets another agitation, redo the chemicals. So anyhow, that video I had to edit, compile, and upload before the live stream. And it took a little bit. There's another video that'll be out tomorrow, which completes. When we were out there this weekend, we dealt with the evil quartz hard spot. We put up a new catch deck overhead and mined, I don't know, 1.25 tons, 1.5 tons of ore. I don't know.
Good.
I don't want to put much more than that on that trailer.
No.
Yeah. Hey, John.
Hey, John.
Yeah, Eva's doing a better job getting the buckets off the high line. I mean, they're getting heavier and heavier. I'm sure she's noticing it, but she's able to handle it. We're going to take next weekend off. Both of us are getting a little worn down physically. So we're
holiday weekend.
We're gonna get some maintenance issues.
Holiday weekend. Oh yeah, it's Labor Day.
Yeah, it's holiday weekend.
That communist thing going on.
Yeah.
And miscellaneous other stuff kind of caught up. But
The end of the summer.
here's a little, when you look at the other video, you'll see some of it in the video I just posted, but here's how we left the vein when I left, okay? This is the old decline right here. This is horizontal. This would be laying flat on the ground. Here's the ladder track here. And the vein itself is iron. Actually, this goes up further. This is much narrower than that. But anyhow, this is that hard spot that I was working on. And this is iron stained material. It varies anywhere from iron stained, heavily silicified, to be careful because as soon as the tip hits it, it's just going to sink in there and try and get stuck, sort of stuff. It varies inch by inch. Interesting point made in the next video that hadn't been posted. This quartz right here seemed to be what the old miners were most interested in. And it doesn't look very mineralized at all. This, on the other hand, looks very mineralized.
It may be the edges of the quartz.
I don't know.
After it might not have been the quartz
Let's
itself.
see.
But that's,
See, this
that
is some of
shows up
the
pretty good.
mineralized stuff from right there where they left. Okay. And that seems to be mostly calcite too, by the way. Could you get that off the carpet and throw it in the trash?
I'll get it.
And then this right here, this rock looks for all the world like pack rat penthouse material. And it was from right in here, just underneath this really soft black material. I don't know what the black material is, but I got samples of it. We got the same thing here. It seems to be between fragmented wall rock. I don't know if it's carbon or what, but I've got samples of it so we can check. But this visually looks really good. They were going after the quartz. And I don't know why. I took samples. I took a 4 bucket sample here, a 1 bucket sample here, a 1 bucket sample here, 1 bucket sample here, a couple buckets, 2 or 3 buckets there, marked them all and hauled them back. So the idea is we'll crush those samples separately, split them down, then just throw it all in the tank except for the small sample. And then we can have it assayed,
see where you're at.
do anything we want. But my thought is a possibility that if they were shipping to a smelter, because we found no processing facilities, there's none at the mine, there's none along that area that we can find.
Okay.
So there might be something close by that we just don't know about. Xioxio could not find any records, and yeah, John, basically. And so one possibility is they were shipping it to a smelter, which will take it because of sufficient silica for the, and then they'll give them a credit for the gold. But I think that things like this are not going to have that much silica, and you might have to upgrade it a little.
Well, that's it. Some of it depends on what smelter it went to. Some of them didn't want high iron either. And when you're dealing with, like what you've got here, a high iron content, they may have wanted that quartz in there with the iron.
Yeah, see, that's my thought, because we haven't found any quartz on the dumps either.
Yeah.
And now they may be because the quartz is in the waste dump as opposed to the protor dump and the Hallett dump. You haven't looked at the dump on the other side of the downhill side of the landing pad.
Only about the top 3 feet of it, and I saw no quartz.
You saw no quartz there?
No.
Okay.
I saw essentially the same stuff that's in the dump that we already screened.
Okay. So she's not seeing chunks of quartz either. So I'm not sure, but I think that may be what's going on that.
And I have no chunks of quartz down by my bucket area. None. 0, 0.
While we're at it, I'm going to answer a question Tricky's got here. I haven't found passivation to Eco Goldex, but I did find out that if I used a lower pH, that it works significantly better. I don't do the 11 to 11.5. I do 10 to 10.5. And so just let you know that, Tricky. I did do those actual tests. I don't think I tried varying the Eco Goldex too much. Quartz may have been, Eva loves to hear this. Quartz may have been carrying coarser free milling gold.
And that's possible.
Yeah.
I've been
Only
saying
way you'll
for a
know is
while
be
now because
testing.
we only ever saw the first run of the coarse gold that showed up that caused us to build the sluice after we had ground up some kryptonite and it was in there.
I don't know.
It's a possibility.
It's a possibility. So we don't know. But I can tell you that up till a couple weeks ago, we were running fire assay on a split sample from the batches we were running in the agitation tank. And we were comparing them to the solution concentrations of the Eco Goldex when we were done with the agitation. And we were getting very high recoveries and very consistent recoveries correlating to those fire assays.
Okay.
So
good.
The idea was we're going to stop assaying the solids and just assay the solution. It costs half as much. It's local, it's quicker, don't have any shipping, blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, after we kind of made this decision and stuff, we got back the latest samples from the assay lab and the latest samples from the solution lab. And they were running, both of them, about a third of what we were anticipating at this elevation in the decline. Now, mind you, that's based on a relatively small chip sample
Right.
on this face.
Right.
All of this stuff was just solid bedrock.
Right. You had no access to that.
So, and I always would try and sample where they seem to be most interested.
Right.
So, if that's the case, I think, yeah, it should be here.
It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Where
with the
we're
quartz.
at, yeah, should have been running almost 3 times what the chip sample was. On the other hand, at the higher elevations, we seem to be doing better than what my chip sampling indicated. We're going to have to go through here and correlate the batch because Eva keeps track, 1,500 pounds, so much from this elevation, so much from that, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So we can get some numbers to fill in between these things. But we should be somewhere right around here. And the number that I got back from the solution lab today was about half what we
Thought you were running.
we should have been running. And this is important because half of what we're anticipating is not profitable.
No, not good number.
Not good enough. I made an error that had 5,000 ppm leach agent at pH 10.5. 5,000 parts per million. That'd be what, 5 kilograms per ton? I believe 5 kilograms per metric ton. So that'd be, yeah, about 10 times what we run. We're doing 6 pounds per ton of, 5 pounds per metric ton. No, No, we're running 6 pounds per ton of solution is our concentration. Well, tell Eva. Tricky says, nice haircut, by the way. I always complain it's getting in my eyes and stuff. So Eva was tired of hearing me whine.
He was having fits because I did a layer cut on the front this time.
See how much
Will you please tell
how
him
gray
he
it
needs
shows?
to part like Kennedy and not
My
Cronkite?
mustache, my eyebrows are gonna be gray. It's all just, it is what it is.
Yep. But anyhow, so that's kind of our situation. When it comes to the bunker buster bits, the sharp, hard-faced edge was really good when you're trying to grab, hit a bite. Oh, it bit real good. Hard rock, it didn't last too long. Okay, eventually it either wore off or broke off or whatever. But the narrower bit was significantly better than the chisel bit width from the factory.
Yeah.
And it seems to self sharpen just fine.
Really.
Yeah. It's in the video. But yeah, the second video shows you a close up of that bit after 2 days of work. And it's reasonably sharp. I mean, it's not pointy. I won't say anything, David. But anyhow, so if you're having difficulty getting the rock to break and you're using a wider bit, narrow it down.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because it really did. Yep. So anyhow, that is pretty simple. Just plasma cut, the edges off.
And clean it out.
Because once you get, the chisel bit on a Hilti typically is about this wide and about that long. It's a flat thing where they apparently just stamped the hot steel and turned it into a
sharpened edge.
wide. The other thing is that shoulder that you get, when you get in soft material, it makes it harder to pull out.
Yeah.
Yep.
It'll pinch itself in.
Yeah. And you don't usually get it jammed in hard material. It's soft material.
Right.
Yeah. And it's a pain in the butt. Handy hint, always have 2 bits with you. So if you get one stuck, you can use the other to unstick it. But just narrowing the bits down seemed to help, because I've got several that got worn down to where it was getting narrower, and I just stopped using them and went to fresh bits.
Yeah.
Those would be easy to just chink chink, plasma them off and do that. But I put 2 days on that bit, and I haven't worn it to pure shank yet. I'm still in the transition stage where the flat went to the shank, but it's working great.
Huh.
Really working great. So I'm pretty happy. We kicked butt this weekend. We got I think probably a bigger load of ore than anything we've hauled before. Not by a whole heck of a lot, but we got done digging ore like 3 p.m. on Sunday, and started tearing down the critical thing was getting the head frame in the shaft is kind of tough for one person to do, so I wanted to get that done, because mornings what I try to do, because Eva likes to sleep in later, is have something to do that doesn't require Eva.
Correct.
Well, picking up all the other stuff and everything,
putting tools away
rolling
and
up the high
organizing,
line and tying it up and putting it
power
away.
cable
Yeah, she can't do that anyway.
and-
So it works out great. Oh, well, let him, Kodak. And
This usually goes on different tangents, different nights anyway. What
Yeah,
the hell?
you never know. Yesterday, I just spent the morning breaking rock
Yeah.
and stockpiling it. And I had ore piled here and the quartz there and wall rock over there. And
So you start organizing
and
what
then-
you want, what pile.
yeah. And we, because I have to have her to run the hoist,
I'll agree, David.
Yeah, they're pretty much right now, David. Take some acid and it'll all make sense.
Evidently, I don't know. It sure doesn't make sense just looking at it.
Man.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, what little one?
Michael Cohen says Trump won't run in 2024 because he doesn't want to go up against Liz Cheney.
Yeah,
Right.
sure.
Yeah, confused.
I could go up against Liz Cheney, but anyhow. The whole situation is still a bit confused, especially when it comes to ore grade. And as you can see, it's a jumbled mess down there.
You kind of have to take it the way you're taking it. You don't,
Yeah, we just need to know where to throw everything.
Right.
Like if this black is carbon, and so you got basically broken wall rock with carbon in between, that needs to go off the dump.
Yeah.
That carbon's no good for your leaching. It can absorb some.
I
of
don't
the
know if
solution.
that's carbon or not, though. I don't think so.
I don't know.
You may find that you got some pretty high grades in that black stuff.
Yeah, so I don't know. We'll find out. Eva's also working. Hopefully, in the next week or two, she's going to try doing her first actual fire assays.
I've actually done a couple, but the seeds are so dang tiny, we have no way to make
Hey, Chris, need your help here. Can you find me on the internet a chart showing the weight of a bead of gold when you measure it in microns or whatever? Because right now I used to have one and I can't find one.
Yeah, and I don't have a scale that gets small enough.
Are you using an exhaust fan while drilling, Keith? No, I am using a dust mask, but not an exhaust fan. I may go to a respirator, but this weekend wasn't bad.
I just bought you some N95s.
Because there was wind. When there's no wind, it just tends to be still air. And for particles, yeah. As the stuff that I'm chewing up also is it's got heavy metals in it.
Silicas.
I just bought you a box of N95s.
Yeah, Chris, we don't even have a place to put the microgram scale that's stable enough to use it. Okay, Lauren. Figures. Yeah, Eva needs
Let me
a
guess,
copy of
Lauren's
those.
got one.
Yeah, Lauren says, I've got some charts. Yep. Hi in his name. But so let's say Eva wants to get started on fire assaying.
Yeah. I've got a
And
couple.
that would come in very, very handy on stuff like this. Well, when all you've got, Chris, is a wooden shelf and a wooden building, that's a shop, and it's windy, yeah, our milligram scale fluctuates. You need a fairly stable platform to put it on. Eva gets annoyed. She's got to close the door just to even get some kind of stability out of the milligram scale, to say nothing of a microgram scale. I would not be surprised, Tricky. According to him, that after 800 parts per million, the recovery drops with the Eco Goldex. Let's see. So we're looking 3 divided by 2.
Here's videos of that helicopter thing going on.
3.
Interesting.
0.003. That'd be 3,000 parts per million is what we're using. Interesting. We should probably try lowering the EcoGold-X a little bit. Let's try running a batch where we have an assay on the ore and run the solution at a lower EcoGold-X concentration. Maybe start it where we're at, just not add any. As it drops, just let it go.
Interesting.
Okay.
Something like this. Okay, Chris. Let's see. What I gotta do is I gotta click this. No. Cancel. Open link in new tab. Chris always sends me stuff. Something went wrong. It wouldn't work, Chris. I have no idea in his name, but the thing is you have to have a big enough sample to test. And that, you know, when you're talking, well, let's say you had 1 ounce per ton ore, and you did 1 assay ton of rock, which is around 30 grams, right? The reason it's called an assay ton is because every milligram of gold is 1 ounce per ton. So we've got a scale that the minimum it can weigh is 1 milligram. You know?
No, we have a scale that the minimum that you weigh is 10.
Yeah.
It is 100 milligrams.
And so
It's
to
only
get
a
it,
4-digit scale.
to get an accurate thing, you really need like 10 times that or whatever.
You need a scale that's got 5 decimal places to get accurate. We don't have
Yep. For that, you need a significantly better scale than we have. Let's say, and he's right, a microgram scale. But typically with a microgram scale, it's set on a giant pedestal, either cast concrete or a big chunk of
steel bolted
down. Usually not even steel. You want mass. So they usually have like a chunk of granite or something like that. Right. Just a big giant mass.
It's in a case.
You know, and then you got to have draft shields and all kinds of stuff. But
And climate control.
Climate control, I wouldn't doubt that either.
Real fancy scales have full climate control.
Yeah, I suppose. But anyhow, so that's you know, if you just measure the bead size, then by using a simple conversion, which is what a table does, you know, a bead of this size, and I can measure a bead size real easy with that. You know, that'll get it to within 1,000th of an inch. So that'll get us where we need to do. The last 3 buckets, well, 1/8 of a gram out of 3 buckets ain't bad in general. Which is the better leaching agent? Okay. I'm using the EcoGold-X S. The standard one is EcoGold-X O. And the kinetics, the speed of dissolution, depends on the actual chemical reaction and the size of the gold. I got extremely fine gold. I'm getting extremely fast dissolution, but I haven't done apples to apples. I haven't taken cyanide and EcoGold-X on splits of the same ore. In our case, it doesn't matter what cyanide does because we can't use it legally in this state. So we have to use something non-cyanide. If you're in an area where you can use either one, I would suggest you try a test where you take a sample, split it in two properly, using representative splitting, and then run both at the same time for the same amount of time, then analyze the solutions and see what you get. I'd go with at least a kilogram of each rock to try and minimize the nugget effect. And so that's, like I said, I'm perfectly happy with the EcoGold-X kinetics. I like the fact that it's relatively non-toxic. I can splash it on me and not worry about it too much. But in terms of which is best, and again, this is another thing. It's
ore dependent.
It's going to depend on your particular ore.
Yep.
In terms of side reactions. For example, if you've got a lot of carbon in your ore, or even a significant amount of carbon, you may be forced to go with a thiosulfate leach as opposed to a cyanide, and even the EcoGold-X has cyanide ions in it. It's not cyanide, it's ferrocyanide, but it converts to a gold cyanide. So you really have to test it against your ore.
Hey, Lars.
Yeah, Lars. Hey, did you notice the thumbnail for this? Guess what that is? That's a picture of my relay.
Hey, Lars.
But anyhow, so you can guess, and sometimes you make good guesses, but you always have to test before you commit. Never commit to anything without testing, because nature has this nasty way of finding your errors and pointing them out to you painfully.
Right. Usually it hurts too. Yeah.
Anyhow, Eva was saying that she thought it would be cool to go up on top of some of the decks I built and start working on that overhead vein with the little mini Hilti.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to give her an idea of how hard some of that rock is. She was talking about, well, she can't use the big Hilti, but she can use the mini. Yeah. And so she might be able to help. And I said, okay, I need you to carve sockets for this cross tie for the thing.
Yeah. That rock that's out there, the rock I want, is a much different type of guy. Those dudes would be perfectly fine.
Yep. And that rock just wouldn't yield to the mini Hilti. The big Hilti, no problem. Do you melt it down after the leaching? Theoretically, the gold, once you leach it, extract it into a resin, and somehow get it out of the resin, you would melt it down into a doré bar. But right now, Eva's essentially fire assaying the resin, and that's kind of a slow, expensive process for a production thing. It's doing good because as we try different things, we have a fire assay on the resin, and then we try something and then see that and see what the correspondence is.
Right. See if you're getting numbers that work together.
Yeah. And
my numbers are very consistent.
Well, you better, Lars.
Still 11.
You better. Because you're way too smart not to be able to use that. What happens if you burn the leach? Well, the leach is primarily water. And currently we're getting solution concentrations like 6 parts per million. So that's 6 grams per metric ton. So that's 2,200 pounds of water by what is it, 8.6? Okay, so we're talking 255 gallons of water to get 6 grams of gold. Now to evaporate that, I don't know how much energy you have to use.
The energy use would be too extreme.
But I suspect you're going to spend more in energy.
And then it's not scalable either, like you're
Yeah.
trying to do, where you can eventually increase your production.
Yeah. There's more efficient ways. It's hard to tell with Lars. Genetics are weird things.
Check.
But in general, there's easier ways of doing it than evaporating. Because again, you're not going to get gold. You're going to get gold and lime and salt and dry
And
eco
things
gold
that when you burn them could poison you.
and all kinds of weird stuff. And then you're still going to have to do something with that.
Yeah, right.
We can get the gold out of the Eco Gold X in about 1 minute and concentrate it from 6 parts per million to about 0.4% in the gold, which is, what is that? 40,000 parts per million. So we can go from 6 to 40,000 in 1 minute. So that's why we, are doing it the way we're doing it. You now have a much more concentrated product. The problem isn't that we can't get the gold out of the resin. The problem is that we can't do it without a lot of losses. The gold in the resin, and probably, I would be willing to bet you if you tried evaporating the Eco Gold X, you're also going to get those volatilization losses.
Probably.
You're probably going to have a lot of it float up in the air too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aha, yeah, Chris, that's cool. Okay, Tricky. Yeah, let us know how that works out. That's turned out to be the problem. Does the other resin work on the hypo leach? That's a thiosulfate leach.
Yeah.
And so I say Tricky is over there. He's got some really good grades. And so he's got a strong motivation to make this work. And so I'm letting him do a lot of the research because he's doing a good job on it.
Well, yeah, he's doing his homework. That's evident.
Yep. So anyhow, we've got some stuff to try this week at the lab. Furnace continuing to work, depending. I have no clue, Lars. Again, I think what we have to do is get that gold in a non-volatile form. Now, here is something. The stuff that we leached with 1% sodium hydroxide and 3% Eco Gold X, we didn't get much Eco Gold X out of the resin. But when she fired the resin, fire assayed the resin, got the best results yet. So what it might do is it is technical stuff, unfortunately, in his name. But this is what you have to do to make money hard rocking in some cases. Sometimes it's easy enough to just crush and
3 million
grab
gold.
it.
Yeah, you get lucky, but
yeah,
that's not always the case.
But so what we're thinking, Tricky, is the volatile complex of the gold. Now, Chris came up with that Bureau of Mines report that showed that adding iron in the form of pyrite caused the losses to go from like 3% to 95%. So, shh, John. But anyhow, so it may be the iron that's the critical thing. And by getting the iron out of the resin, we essentially stabilize the gold that's in the resin because it's no longer in that iron gold cyanide complex.
Right.
It's in just a gold cyanide complex or something, which isn't as volatile. Don't know. Tests are ongoing right now. Also, another interesting observation, we originally tried leaching the resin with just the sodium hydroxide. Okay. And when that happened, Eva got a black precipitate mixed in with the beads that was highly magnetic. So we may not even need the Eco Goldex on the lead. What that may be doing is forming a magnetite, you know.
And I have to ash the beads to continue that test. However, the assay I did on the beads that were done that way tested out higher than the assay on the beads from the same group that did not.
So let's say that may be the key. We will research it over the next couple of weeks and come up with some kind of an answer as to what happens. Yep, and yeah, John, it is complicated. Once you get it figured out, then it's fairly simple. It's kind of like a car. Designing a car is very, very complicated.
Designing anything.
Driving a car is much simpler.
Right.
Once somebody else has done the
Design.
complicated task of figuring it out how all these things work, then you just have to apply a formula. And so the key is to find out what the procedure is,
Right.
what the recipe is. Once we have the recipe, it
right.
should be fairly straightforward afterwards. But we're trying to bake a cake that nobody's baked before, apparently.
Well, in this case, yes, but with any ore, you're going to have to go through this process of some kind. Is how can I extract? You know, if you got an assay that's good, now you want to be able to extract as close to that assay as you can, and there's a big range in that site of what'll work, what won't, what'll have losses, what won't.
Yep. Well, and the thing is, cyanide has well over a century of history and research behind it.
Exactly.
And so they've learned a lot of the answers. You say, well, what's the ore got? Okay, this will work, that won't.
Right.
Right now,
you're working with some newer products.
Yeah, the people who make it don't even know. They can't answer your questions.
Right.
You know, very, very frustrating. But on the other hand, it makes it more interesting.
Correct.
And in our particular case, it's
you've figured most of it out. You're getting so close.
Yeah. Well, and we're working under so many constraints. A big mining company, first of all.
Right. Money's not an option. So
money's not an option.
Then they can try 3 things at the same time.
But then when they finally get a project, it's all been figured out by that time.
Right.
Here, I'm trying to do all these things with very low budget.
Yeah.
Keep it below significant disturbance.
Right.
And got to leach, can't do, it's not free milling gold. And so it is a challenge. It's a puzzle, and I'm trying to get all the pieces. We seem to have found the answer to the quartz nodule issue in the mining thing.
Right.
We're gonna design and put an inertia reel to the carriage so that if the main
cable
hoisting mechanism breaks, whatever. I'm more worried about the actual winch having an internal failure because you can't see that coming.
Right.
All of a sudden, the worm gear may break.
Yeah, just goes flying.
And there it goes. Something like that. Huh. Tricky says if you put it in sodium hydroxide, the resin goes black. If you put it in hydrochloric acid afterward, then the resin goes clear again. Don't know.
Haven't tried that one yet, Tricky, but yes, indeed.
Yep.
In lye, it does have a definite color change.
Yeah, but it also makes a precipitate. And
At least ours did, but I did it at room temperature first.
Yeah, and the solution, the leaching solution that you're exposing it to, hydroxide, gets a pretty dark brown. By the way, I stirred up your stuff while I was there too, little one.
It doesn't get dark brown. It gets dark pumpkin color.
Dark
Tinged
pumpkin color.
with red.
Tinged with
That
red.
man has no color discrimination in his vision. Completely ignores
Oh, well.
anything he says about color.
But anyhow, so as I say, it is an interesting challenge. You can't build roads. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't do the other. And it has been quite an interesting challenge, but we're planning on putting an inertia reel. I'm going to have to redesign the top of the head frame because,
Gotta have a place to put it.
yeah, we got to get it up high enough.
You know.
We could use more for the bull wheel anyhow. And the top of the head frame is an insert into one of the two legs, so it's easy to do, you know? And, so that's one more thing there. Getting a, they call it a, what was it, forester's hard hat or whatever, but it's got a drop down face shield and the earmuffs built in.
You know,
And that'll allow me to put on a respirator or mask easier. Because when you're wearing safety glasses
yeah,
and a respirator,
they
you
fog
can't
up.
see.
Yeah.
They just fog up.
Yep. Been there, done that.
So I say we'll see how well that works out. I've got my big carabiner snap, so that when I'm working on the ladder, put stuff I can just snap on. And then with the belt that Lauren gave me, it works well. I just wrap it around and snap it in front again, and it's a little bit of a bulky belt is all.
Yep.
That's all. So we're getting these things worked out. I was very, very happy to go through that hard spot. It has been really annoying the crap out of me. And thank you, Lauren, for the work on the bits. That did help. Okay, Tricky, I'm going to go back out for just a minute anyhow. You tell them how your week went.
My week's been, I don't know, just keeps going. Actually, I haven't been here for 3 weeks, I don't think. I had a trip to Minnesota for a wedding, and then I got COVID from that, so I had about a week of downtime with a sinus infection. And then I had some equipment out that I was waiting to get back in. Well, last Monday night, and it ended up the semis were coming in later Monday night, so I couldn't be here. I picked up some COVID, Chris. I was sinus infection and just miserable for about 5 days. Beer. Oh, I've taken vitamin C, D, zinc. It just happened to be, I guess a big enough event that somebody was sick. And then this week, I've been out looking at some other equipment. I found a trommel and some other equipment that I may purchase for another leasable unit or something. And I've been moving equipment. That's what I was doing today, as I was up on the mountain moving some equipment from one site to another. And then I was out to a mine to look at some guys doing some testing. They called me out there to kind of line out their testing program. And the biggest failure I seen with what they were doing is they were diluting their samples so bad, which was a good thing in a way because their numbers were still workable for the values they were coming up with. But the minute we started really paying attention per sample and not getting it diluted with the other gravel, the numbers went way up. So it was like, okay, this is what you guys need to do here is make sure you do not dilute your samples.
Yeah. I agree with Chris on that in his name. You cannot trust. Yeah, Mining Journal is a respectable magazine, but the ads are just ads. And it can be anywhere from, perfectly legit all the way up to a total scam, they can't possibly research it.
No.
And, so like anything else, you just got to assume it's bad until proven otherwise. Do your due diligence. Check it out yourself. Information from another source. I'm experienced enough in this. I can take a look at a report and tell you, was this written for stockholders? Or was this
finding investors?
was this written for the technical department? Because the way it's written
definitely
changes a lot. You're making a PR report to put out there in the market to sell stock. It's going to look a lot different.
The old saying, lipstick on a pig, applies. You definitely, if you're going to be looking at buying a mining claim or something, you definitely want to do your own due diligence. I don't care what kind of paperwork they give you or what was tested and you want to do your own testing.
Yeah, I am.
And they should allow you a time to be able to do that. And if they don't want to let you on the ground to bring in your own geologist or do your own testing, run.
Yeah, if they don't want you to take samples
and test,
you don't want to even waste your time.
Nope. There's something wrong right away at that point.
Because if they have a good claim, they'll be happy to have you take samples. I am personally familiar with, some brokers that have. Let's see.
There's a few
one claim there that was. Yeah. There was a couple claims that were just pure paper staked.
Yeah.
There's
a lot of that.
And I went out there to verify corners. They weren't there.
Yeah.
Another one, same group. The corners were there, but their advertisement was talking about gold when the mine historically didn't have crap for gold in it. It was a lead mine.
Well, that's,
and so,
they're just trying to sell property.
Yeah.
Or sell minerals.
Exactly. They're just trying to sell properties.
Move ground.
That's
not good.
It's a lot easier to mine wallets than it is to mine bedrock. So, just be very careful. I would say that well over 90% of all advertised claims are crap. Either they're falsely advertised, basically, the person knows it, or just they really don't know what they've got in detail.
Right.
There's a lot of wishful thinking in this business.
Well, that's the thing. If you run into is, we've been told, or for the claim above us did really well, or something like that. Well, that doesn't mean anything really, unless you do your own due diligence.
I have never heard of the White River claim in Alaska. Unless it's a famous one, we will not have heard of it. Yeah, now patented claims are something different, John. You're correct, because in the patent claim, you're basically buying private property.
Yeah, you're actually getting something, even if there's no further gold or silver or anything there.
Yeah, because a patented claim is private property. An unpatented claim is government property that you have the temporary mineral rights to. You can lose that any year. You don't do your paperwork properly or whatever. It can disappear.
As a reminder, guys, September 1st, have your paperwork in here, like now.
Yeah. Yeah, if you don't have it,
just a reminder.
And now you need to drive over there and get it.
And get it in.
Yep. That's the difference. If you're in Colorado in his name, there's a lot of patented claims out there. You will need to, in that case, one of the big questions is access. You may have a claim up on top of a mountain with no road to it, and it's surrounded by Forest Service land, and they won't let you build a road. That can be a problem. So you need to check all those other things out, just like you would for any other piece of property.
Yeah, true.
But at least you've got a piece of property, and if you've been in the oil business, you have an idea about the gold business too. Yeah.
The mineral stuff is pretty much the same.
Yeah, but I mean, there's the same kind of
Well, yeah, the same kind of, yeah.
money BS that
Oh,
goes
yeah.
on there. Yeah.
Yeah, we got these.
Oh, that's sad, John.
Yeah, sorry to hear that, John.
Yep. So, I say that's like any piece of property, you have to do due diligence. With mining claims, you have to do a lot more. Not only does it have to have, yeah, a lot of wishful thinking.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly, Chris, and that's what I do a lot of is the historical research, go in and open edits, do all the due diligence that you possibly can, identify the trends if there are any or a streak, and then try to get it kind of in process to a larger mining company or a small miner, kind of in a greenfields type project where they'll come in and put $1 million worth of exploration into it or something.
Yeah, in his name, exactly. There, a lot of the majority of the people that are running businesses like that are in it for the money, not for the oil, and they don't care how they get their money to a great extent. The first mine I worked at, the president of that company, um, his buddies in the stock business, why the hell are you opening up a mine? That's not how you make money in the mining business. By mining, you sell stock. That's how you make money. Gives you all you need to know about the psychology.
Yep.
Yeah, John. I'm afraid that's getting more common nowadays for some unknown reason that can't be discussed. Not on YouTube, at least. Yeah, I mean, if it's a patented claim, it might be a great place to pick up. And yeah, that's basically it, John. So that's things you have to look at. I knew a guy a while back. I forget the exact details, but I think he died. One of his relatives knew somebody or whatever. But I mean, he had some pretty good ore, but it was on a patented claim, like almost inside city limits now.
Oh, man.
And so they were just buying it for the land. It's possible in his name. I don't know what the what the land markets and housing markets are going to do in the future here. I would say that right now is a more risky time than many others to make these investments. So your due diligence is even more critical.
Yeah.
You have a lot of external factors like interest rates and stuff like that come into play. For example, if you're buying something on a fixed interest rate, you have an entirely different situation than if it's a variable rate, because it's entirely possible the interest rates are going to
Continue up.
dramatically increase over the next few years.
And inflate your debt away.
And so if you had a fixed interest rate, as Eva said, it inflates your debts away, but you're not killed. On the other hand, if it's a variable rate, all of a sudden you wind up having to pay an outrageous mortgage payment. Yeah, tailings is a potential issue that can work out well. But again, it becomes pretty technical, John.
Very true, Chris.
Yeah. Yeah, you really need to do your due diligence. That's the thing.
Yeah, because I've seen a lot of patents in the stuff that I do where even the mineral rights were split maybe between some grandkids or something like that. And now you've got a nightmare because you've got 7 owners of the mineral rights that you need to get them all to agree on being able to mine it. And that usually turns out to be not a fun program.
Yeah, it can get very complicated, and in many cases, it's
a lo-
best to just walk
well,
away.
In a lot of cases, the landowner, the actual patent holder, doesn't understand those technical issues that, hey, the mineral rights are all split here when you go to look them up.
Mm-hmm.
And or part of it, I knew a big company that was on a property up here, and they actually got the contracts with the landowners and got everything done and went in and started mining, only to find out in their first season of mining that a church owned 50% of the mineral rights. And they got into quite a legal problem there.
Mm-hmm.
Because they never had notified the church or asked for, a position with on the mineral rights. And some of that fell back, some of the legal challenge fell back against the actual claim owner or the landowner, the patent holder, because he should have known that before he signed a contract with the mining company.
Yeah.
But it turned in to be a fairly ugly thing. It got worked out because they hadn't given him his royalties yet. So they had enough room to move with the royalties and make it, even it out with everybody. But it wasn't a good program.
Yeah. Life can get so complicated. I get so tired of that. Why can't it just be simple?
It's a quantum thing.
She does that all the time.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so what else you did here? Eve and I are going to take next weekend off for mining to get a break.
Enjoy the last of the good weather before we go to fall here.
Yeah. Well, our bodies aren't as resilient as they used to be.
No, when you're going every day.
And when you
It does
push them as
catch
hard
up
as
with
we
you.
have, yeah, you take a look. Well, let me see here. John. Digging. Yeah, it's just feeling draggier than it should and stuff like that. So probably need to take a week off at least from the extreme physical labor, maybe a day or two just to take it easy. We're just going to do personal stuff tomorrow. Nothing, John. Let's see. This should be our litharge. Tracking number sent to, UPS ground. Let's see, tracking number. So let's see if they can tell us where it is. The delivery label created? Well, that's not very helpful.
Oh, that means somebody's planning to put it in the mail.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. Let's see how well this bot works. Delivery date? ? Enter. Let's see how fast. Is out for delivery today? No. Okay, so theoretically, it should have shown up today.
It's just going to send you around in a loop.
Yep. Yeah, because it didn't say when it was supposed to show up here.
They're just throwing you around.
Yeah, our litharge is supposed to show up here real quick there Lauren. So that's good. Lauren and I have been doing a deal where we've been kind of splitting bags of assay chemicals. Because
Hey,
55 pounds is a lot.
yeah.
Oh no, if I get rip roaring sober, that would work for me. Once the snow hits, the work stops. Not completely. That's possible in his name. On the other hand, if things go the other way, you might have decided that, in the long run, it's a good thing you didn't. You use certain mats for fine gold. I am not an expert on that. What would you use for fine gold, Jim?
I would still stick with my 3M miner's moss, but it depends on what you're setting up, Paul. I mean, are you crushing hard rock, trying to get fine gold out of it in a small sluice box, tight sluice box, or are you running actual gravels?
Yeah, the term fine gold
Yeah.
covers a large spectrum.
Yeah, that's a whole spectrum.
Yeah. And
exactly, Chris.
I'll say, and that would be underneath expanded metal, right? Or just plain miner's moss under riffles. How would you hold it down?
Under riffles of
Under
some
riffles.
sort, expanded steel or riffle, Hungarian type riffles. All right, crushed rock. So you could go with a ribbed matting. What are we talking, Paul, for a sluice box? I mean, 6-inch, 8-inch. I mean, how much rock? How much crushed rock are you running?
And how fine are you crushing it? And exactly what size is the
right?
gold?
Are you liberating the gold by crushing it? That's the next question.
Yeah. Say
but always use a combination of riffles or matting or whatever. In any sluice box, you should have a combination of 2 or 3 or 4 different kinds of things in there and different distances between them. Covering conveyor mat. Yeah, I would go with that, Chris. 8-inch by 4 foot. Okay, so tight. Basically, we're talking fairly tight, which is good. I've had really good success with some of the gold hog mat, using 2 or 3 kinds of the gold hog mat.
And
the biggest issue there is making sure you get your calculations right for your degree of pitch and your water velocity, or they don't work. You'll end up throwing 50% of the gold into your tub and having to do it again until you get that thing dialed in.
You also need to make sure you know how fine you have to crush the rock to get the gold liberated. And so that's just by testing. You can sit there and crush it, screen it to different sizes, and then hand pan it. And before you get to the gold, when you're just getting to concentrate, take your tailings and assay them and see
Is there right?
Are
you getting liberation? Because that's something you don't want to miss, especially in hard rock, is you want to make sure that you're crushing to a level that you are liberating the gold that's in there, and you're not throwing part of it away into the dump pile there.
Yeah. You're welcome in his name. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Thanks for being here.
Minus 50 plus 100 and 100 minus. Those are pretty good numbers in general. Again, you need to test for sure to see how it's working out. I'd say in my case, that won't work. With hard rock, you can get some just insane things. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, small tables often considered, is a good alternative. Sluices.
If you're getting liberation, a table would be a good suggestion, definitely.
Does the small material travel at the same velocity as the water? Well, Mr. Placer Miner?
I I would say that's actually a no. It's moving, and you want moving in separation, not necessarily flow of material.
Yeah, you would, Lars. You don't forget, you must drink during this. And so, in my opinion, with the work I've done on tables, the water will flow the fastest. Your lighter particles will flow next fastest.
Correct.
Your heavier particles will flow the next fastest, and the gold particles flow slowest of all. Everything else being equal.
Correct. But herein lies the problem, is trying to get that equalization. That's what you're looking for.
And it's not that they don't flow at all. The gold, as I say, you have to be able to trap it. This is
You
why
have to get a separation of the different
Yeah.
weights of those materials.
Mhm.
That's why most of the time we talk about length of the sluice box. The longer it is, the more liberation you should be able to get out of it as you're working that material through that concentration system.
Well, and that's also why slick plates are used.
Exactly.
To get them to
get
separate into layers.
Yep.
You know? And flotation can work just fine, Paul. You now got chemistry and chemicals to deal with. That's why gravity is so nice if it works. All you got's water. But I found, say, on the tables, the gold will go slow, but then you got to have something to stop it. It'll just keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't get separation, it'll throw into your slipstream and you'll carry it off.
Yeah.
You have to get separation.
Yeah. And this is also why when I'm panning, I'll pan off a quarter or a third of the lights, then stop, bring it all back, and then tip it forward again and pan again. Because what I want to do is, as things are racing to the edge and the gold is the slowest, I want to make sure it never gets there before I yank it back to the starting line again.
All right. Gold sluice fiddler, gold cube, yes, can work very well, especially for taking concentrates from a bigger sluice box and refining the concentrates again. One of the problems with a gold cube, though, is you start to get separation, then it drops off a waterfall into a little spot that it rolls it again. Then you start to get separation and it drops it off a waterfall and mixes it all up again. And you go through this whole zigzag of that. So in that respect, mixing the material again versus just a straight run sluice box, a straight run sluice box is going to be far more effective and easier to clean and have a lot better retention of the material that you're trying to catch than completely mixing it every time it comes off the one tray and mixes it all again and runs it again and it mixes, and if you look at one, it's got some things that aren't necessarily good when you're trying to get separation.
Yeah, I've seen a gold cube work really well on dredge concentrates.
Some of it that's already been cleaned and scoured,
It was from the Middle Fork of the Boise, which has really flaky gold.
Yep.
You'd be sitting there panning and you could see gold on top of your black sands.
Yeah.
It was weirdest stuff. But it worked really well. Very low losses. I was panning his tailings just to verify. And I couldn't find any gold in his tailings.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
When you're already dealing with a concentrate from another sluice box, some of that's been scoured and cleaned up and separated enough that then when you go to the gold cube at that point, you're really just trying to get that gold pulled out of there, and it's not a big issue.
Yeah. I say it worked well in that application. I've tried using it as a primary concentrator from hard rock gold, and about 50% recovery. Yeah. And that was the stuff that I was getting like 85% recovery on my trip concentrator.
Well, like I say, just a straight run sluice box will give you a better percentage than that gold cube will with just raw material.
Uh-huh. Yep. So test, and.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh.
Yeah, the viscosity of your material is always going to be a bad factor for carrying gold out.
Yeah.
I mean, the cleaner the water you can use,
Yeah,
the better.
Yeah, you don't want it to be syrup.
No, the thicker that water gets, the more likelihood you're carrying your light gold out.
Mm-hmm.
And flat pieces of gold. And vibrating a sluice box can work if you've got a problem with black sand buildup or some combination of clay that's being a real problem for you. Otherwise, there's really no reason to vibrate a sluice box.
It's basically a special application.
It's a special application situation, that or going to hydraulic riffles where you're pressurizing little jets of water underneath your riffles. Those are more special situations for what you're doing. They're not needed most times.
See, even placer golds and.
Oh yeah, no, there's a lot of ways to take a lot of this. No, hydraulic riffles are actually just, tubular and holes drilled accordingly, and then you want a water pressure that's anywhere from 2 to 5 psi of water pressure. So you want to have a filtering system in that hose system going to those riffles. You want to have some stainless steel filters or something that you can keep debris from plugging. Because the minute you start plugging, you start putting more pressure on other holes and things like that. So you can't regulate your pressure. Let's way to the bottom.
Interesting. Shaggy, you rerun them until you're pretty confident you got the gold, depending upon what you're doing and what you've got, whatever you need to do. If when you rerun your tailings, you don't get anything, no sense rerunning them.
Right.
If you rerun them and you get a significant amount of gold, rerun them again. Stop when it doesn't pay to rerun it.
Well, our heavy black sands and that, I'll agree with David there. We actually would rerun it usually 3 times. And there's probably another way you could do that with, another concentrating system and get better recovery. But we would go from sluice box to a secondary sluice box, cleaning everything again on a smaller machine, and then go to a table and separation there. And at that point, all the black sand coming from the table and that would get bucketed. And then in the winter, we would go back through it just to make sure that we got recovery.
Did you ever try leaching to see if...
I never tried leaching it. We never really went to that point. But, after following what you're doing and things like that, there could be something said for that.
Yeah. If
I did try a small cement mixer once and just let that black sand grind on itself.
Yeah.
And then just put a little button of mercury down in the bottom of it and sweep up that little bit of gold. And at that point, it was like, I don't know if it'd be worth doing this for. After doing it, running that black sand 3 times.
Well, what you could do, let's say with the leaching, is just do a bottle roll and see what happens.
Right.
It's
just see what the numbers come out.
We can do one for you. It doesn't take doodly for chemical, a couple grams.
Yeah.
And then do the bottle roll, and then you take it to the lab and see what they got. Get a 12 and then a 6. Which would you do first? Well, I don't know. I might do a 6-inch with bigger riffles and stuff for larger gold. Then I tend to go to an undercurrent. Have a screen before you go to the wider stuff. That would be my thought. How about you?
Yeah, I guess if you're a 12-inch box and everything would be fine. 6-inch.
You're going to generally have a gentler water flow.
Yeah, you'd have a gentler water flow. Get a 12-inch end-to-end. I guess I would run the 6-inch first in that case, and then go to the 12-inch, which will spread out the material better. And the 12 might be a little overkill for going from 6 to 12. You'd be better off probably going 6 to 8, which you could narrow that box up with a couple of 2x2s or something to get somewhere in that neighborhood of about 8 inches. So you get about a 1/3 change in width. As long as you've got the water flow to do it, it should help you collect a really, really fine gold.
Well, it would depend also on the size of the material. If you're running 1 inch minus through that 6-inch, and then you try and slow it down, those 1-inch rocks are going to
Start hanging up.
That's why my thought is
you definitely want to have a screen down to 3/8 inch or smaller material or something.
That's how you can do that.
Yep.
And without, now you're changing the material as well as your flows. And that's how these dredges with the side boxes work,
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought, Chris, is flare. If you're going to flare by a third roughly.
Sounds good, Rainmaker. I'm always hungry. I'm always hungry except when I'm working.
When I'm busy working, I forget to eat something.
Yeah.
I just keep going and going and going. Definitely run them at different angles. Run your bigger riffles in the 6-inch box at a steeper angle, and then when you open up, when you flare out into that wider box, you can drop the pitch on that box back and get that material to kind of spread out on that box.
Yeah. Test, and. Yep.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of little things to pay attention. I mean, the biggest thing is if you're rerunning your tailings again and again and you're still finding gold, that means your concentration system is not running correctly. You need to make adjustments.
Well, it's not infinite, but near infinite. From a practical standpoint, near infinite, yeah. You can play all kinds of games. So what you do is you do one thing. If it isn't perfect, you adjust one parameter
and see what happens.
Try it again.
Yeah.
If it gets better, then keep going on that parameter until it drops off again. Say, okay, here's the range that parameter works. Then change another parameter.
Right. Do one at a time. Don't try to change 5 things all at the same time.
And see what happens. They're just talking to sluice box in general. They didn't mention anything more. Well, yeah, if nothing else, the material is going to change on you, Shaggy.
Oh, yeah. That happens too, Shaggy. The material, from one bucket to the next, the material can change quite a bit. Or you skim a little more clay or things like that. You'll never find consistency, especially in placer. And honestly, a hard rock vein like Keith is working isn't exactly consistent either.
All these rocks within 3 feet of each other.
Yeah, various colors, various densities,
various mineralogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these two here are a a lot different. This is mainly calcite here. This is mainly silica. Yeah. Feel how dense that
Yeah.
is for someone with a bunch
Yeah,
of holes in it. That's pretty
nice.
dense
That's
stuff.
nice looking stuff. And this is,
A lot lighter.
yeah, pretty washed out,
Yeah.
altered.
What's surprising to me is just when I'm just taking the hammer to that vein, it's like sink, stop, sink, stop.
Mhm.
You know, I get these little miniature veinlets like this wide in there. It's ridiculous.
Exactly, Chris. That's where you start.
Oh.
We're testing. Yeah.
Nothing new.
So does everybody like your hair?
So far,
That's true, Xioxio. You know,
That's pretty
you
much
can do large changes or a complete change in your
Well,
plant or whatever.
No.
But then you have to figure out what those parameters are. And then you can start to make the little alterations to get closer to that number you need to be at. You know, theoretically in placer, you want to have a 98% recovery. Is it doable? Well, sometimes that's a no. Sometimes 90 is as good as you're going to get, depending on the material you're running.
Kodak, Fort Knox is still there. Whether the gold is reputed to be in Fort Knox is still there, that's a
Probably a
different
little
question.
hollow
Have they
inside.
removed the plywood from it yet?
No.
I've never gone out to Newmont or whatever Rainmaker. I've worked at Goldfields Mesquite and Goldfield and Chem Gold Picacho. I've gone to some of the big copper mines just for looking around. Like, well, actually, I was supplying a little bit to Morenci. They're big,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, I think Morenci's bigger than any of the mines, gold mines in Nevada. Last I heard, the Morenci pit was scheduled to be 6 miles across, and the Safford pit, which is a new discovery near Safford, I mean, it's like right over there, is going to be like 20. I mean, it's just insane. They're just drilling and drilling and drilling and drilling and keep hitting. It's insane.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. You were at Fort Knox boot camp, huh?
Good job, Jeff. That's a good way of doing it.
Another thing you can do is take like birdshot and smash it kind of flat and irregular, so it's not perfect spheres anymore.
Well, Xioxio, as the financial system changes here, you may get your wish. I think we'll see some more mines here eventually.
Well, once we change administrations.
Well, that's the problem right now is the regulation administration.
The eco-terrorists, yes.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. Oh, not necessarily, Sluice Gold. You know.
Yeah, I would say check them out. Check those quartz seams. If you're walking past them, there's a good opportunity to pick up some of that rock and check it, have it assayed, test it.
Yeah, I mean,
the old timers only were mainly visual for the most part. They used their eyes. And then they may, crush and pan and try to find something. But that doesn't mean with the technologies we have today, you can't be far more successful than they ever were.
Yeah, the as technology changes, that's I think. Look at this Eco Goldex.
Yep.
You know,
New product.
new product, new opportunities.
Yep.
You know, cyanide shouldn't be illegal in Montana, but it is because all the Californicators, I think.
Yeah. And, you know, the other thing with some of these mines, guys, I mean, especially in this area at $16 gold, they needed an ounce per ton of gold in order to make the money they had to invest in the mine worth it. And if it didn't go an ounce per ton, in a lot of cases, they walked away from that mine and went and started another one somewhere else with higher grade. And those things still exist out there that they walked away for a reason that it wasn't economic at the time, where nowadays it could be very economic.
There ain't nothing wrong with you there. You're having an ongoing migraine. Drink some keto aid.
Possibly.
Get your keto aid. If you don't know
We've got
by now,
cancer.
keto aid will
Take your
fix
keto
everything. If something's wrong, the electrolytes are the answer. Always. You know this.
Get some salt too.
Well, Zeoxyl, that'll change also. Is some of those small, rich deposits may become preferable, and when the value financially gets to the point it's going to probably get to.
Agreed, Zeoxyl. Oh, really, Rainmaker?
That's cool.
The split bolts? When I worked underground the late 70s, they were just getting into split bolts.
Yeah.
We were still primarily using 6 foot, 5/8 inch diameter bolts with expansion heads. They just started testing the split sets. Oh, absolutely. We had 6 and 10 foot bolts.
Yeah.
I think they make 4 foot split sets, but that's for special applications.
I like those interesting sets we saw at the mining museum.
Sets or bolts?
Those pretty sets, the wooden ones
Oh, okay.
with all the different names. Those were art.
Yeah, they have a display over at the mining museum, all the different kinds of sets.
Yours may be functional and utilitarian, but they ain't art.
I agree. Yes, you need to drill the hole the
Yep.
right size. Yeah. How many people have heard about cable bolts?
Yeah, that was another thing they used years ago, a lot of.
Well, they still use them like for highways and such, where you need to really hold a lot of rock.
Anchor all the way through.
They'll do a 50, 100 foot deep.
Yep.
Set the end of the cable in grout, wait for it to harden.
Yep.
And then put the plate on and tension it.
Correct.
The new U.S. Treasury for gold, silver, and platinum, maybe in Reno, Nevada, huh? Ooh, closer for us to steal from.
Right.
Yeah. It's all window dressing. Should be in Carson City anyway.
I think it's post-tension cables were used a lot in Tucson for foundation slabs to keep them from cracking. There'd always be, in the garage, there'd be stamped there, I hear if you're drilling that concrete and you hit the cable, bad things can happen.
If they're stressed that hard.
Uh-huh. We never did. You don't tap a thread. I think there was a number of things wrong with that one, Socio, but that was one of them. For the bolts, a split set doesn't use a thread. I mean, the old style ones we did, it was 5/8 inch bolt threaded on the end with essentially like feather and wedge expansion head on it.
Went in and then
But a split set is like a long roll pin. It's a piece of sheet metal that's rolled, has a ring around one end to act as the head. The other end is tapered down a little bit. And in our case, for example, you drill your 4-foot hole at a particular diameter, particular drill bit, and then you take and use a 6-foot steel with a slightly smaller drill bit on it to drill the last 2 feet. You slide it in, and then you drive those last 2 feet, and that's what grips. Bridge you worked on in Northern California, 400 feet off the river, fell Monday. Wow, that's a long drop. Come on by, Zioxio.
Yeah, you could come for a
You
show.
can take
one
his
night.
seat. Yeah, right. He's only here half the time. I mean, I'm sure we can work that. I don't know how they do the multiple thing. They probably need more software to do that.
We could probably set it up, but that would be a good subject, Zioxio.
Mm-hmm. Where I worked underground, we usually had flat top drifts because it was soft sedimentary layers.
So you dig pretty rectangular tunnel then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Drift.
because they just came in layers.
Right.
The tension cable was messed with by protesters. Wow, I hope they were on the bridge at the time. Just a thought. Stupidity should be painful. Plus, I like to see evolution in action.
Eco-terrorists.
Pretty much, apparently. No, Hellsburg, California.
Oh, that explains it.
Let's see if we can call that up here. Let's take a peek. Why does every rock always find my cable?
Because rocks like your cable.
Okay, so let's see. Best hotels. Don't say anything about a bridge.
No, I think he was talking about back in the 80s, probably.
There's a truss bridge there. Okay, you have to elucidate. Did the bridge just come down? Is a drive and an adit the same?
Yes.
An adit has an opening to the
In
outside.
Australia, they call it a drive, I think.
Okay. I'm not familiar with a drive.
I believe the Australians call it a drive. We
Okay.
call it an adit.
It has an opening to the outside.
Yeah.
If it's just internally, it's a drift. I think you may be wrong on that, Paul. He says, we're going to get U.S. Treasury notes, gold and silver and platinum group back. Turns out we have much more than what people say.
Well, we need to get them back. Let's put it that way.
Okay, it fell back in the 80s, huh?
Yeah. That's what I thought.
Yeah, I've never used the phrase adit for an incline or a decline. Although rarely would you have an opening to the outside and then an incline. That would be unusual. Decline, well, hell, that's what I'm in right now.
Right, but they call usually that's a shaft. It's a declining shaft or an inclining shaft.
Yeah.
As I see it, and I'm probably wrong, an adit is something that opens to the outside.
Yep.
A shaft is a long thing like we're working in right now that usually is attached to an adit or part of an adit that either goes up or down. A tunnel goes from point A to point B without ever opening to the outside.
No.
Well, a tunnel is usually open on both ends to the outside.
Yeah, a tunnel,
That's a tunnel.
is usually
A
for
tunnel is
transportation.
Well, that's for cars.
Yeah, a tunnel is two open ends.
Round shafts have any benefit over a square shaft? Well, if you have pressure from the ground, then the round shaft, concrete lined, will resist that pressure better. Or well, it could be steel lined also. You can make a steel lined shaft pretty easy by using segmented corrugated sections, kind of like you would a big culvert. They're typically heavier there.
Arches are always stronger than flat ceilings.
Well, it dispenses the pressure.
Yeah, and you can also bore them. Exactly, Chris. Our shaft at United Nuclear, they were round and they were lined, I think, with concrete. Pretty sure. Okay, Paul says, we back the notes with gold. In 5 years, you can get the gold value or the face value. That's what I heard. Answer this. Why is gold price going down? Just wait a few minutes to the tinfoil hat report and ask the lady that follows all this stuff. supply has been revealed. That's what the smart money says. Yeah, the smart people have been saying a lot of things I don't believe anymore. I would think shafts are lined all the time, among other things. You don't want a little rock to fall down. Why doesn't the government just print more gold? They're trying to figure out a way to do that, I bet you.
Actually, they are.
Not surprising.
So far, it's all radioactive. But somebody was saying that some Russians, some years ago, had patented a process by which microbes and other viruses and things would make gold out of essentially nothing. They don't actually make it out of nothing. They digest rock. They're kind of like little teeny tiny nano horta, if you've ever watched Star Trek. But that's another story. Hi, guys. How is everybody? Yeah, Paul. As a matter of fact, there's a persistent report going around that the person who's calling himself Pope at the moment, that very interesting gentleman named Francis, has said that all Vatican gold must be repatriated to the Vatican Bank by next month. That would be pretty damn interesting. That would be. Hello, Lars. Hi, David. Hi, Shaggy. Hi, Tricky. Tricky, I hope you hug those babies for me. Hi, Chris. Yeah, I'm totally in favor of the idea, Chris. I mean, the goddess would love to get to work with bacteria. The goddess is very much a fan of the idea of bio-leaching, but certain people keep telling me that it will take too long. Gold-plated data card is being leached in the clear liquid, but not in the slimes. Tricky? I don't find that odd, but I don't know why that is the case. Okay? I have noticed when I've been playing with the Eco Goldex and like when we did those little connectors that came on vape pens, the gold came off very well in absolutely clear liquid. But if anything else was in there, it doesn't do anything at all. And I don't know why. CB, hi, how are you? Hi, Kodak. Yeah, Zioxio. It would be crazy to send that much gold back to the Vatican. But the goddess has to wonder whether any of that Vatican gold is being supposedly stored in our Federal Reserve buildings, because the goddess has sincere doubts as to the quality of the gold that's in the Federal Reserve in general, because quite a few countries and the state of Texas have been trying to get their gold back from the Federal Reserve for an awfully long time, and for some reason they seem to be having difficulty doing so. Not that this surprises the goddess.
High desert. There is somewhere. Yeah, there is some water.
Zioxio, Chris, those are both things that I have wondered about as well, because like I said, just for fun, I occasionally have thrown little things that have precious metal on them into some of my experiments. I'm going to be doing some more bottle roll testing in that regard, because I want to be playing with e-waste myself. But when it comes to any sort of e-waste of any kind, I intend to only be using it with pure Eco Goldex to figure out what's going on, because I want to be using it primarily to test plating methods to get gold out of Eco Goldex directly, so I can get rid of these stupid resin beads that the goddess dislikes. The goddess has decided that resin beads are not in my worldview. Okay? I am dealing with them because I have to. The same way I deal with my electric furnace, because I have to. Because nobody has yet produced an actual furnace for me to use. I'm stuck with this stupid electric thing that I am contemplating blowing up when I get a real furnace. You know. Oh yeah, Kodak. We have some gold backs, and I am a fan. actually. Hmm. Tricky. That is weird. I would try it at a lower concentration actually, because we did actually manage to leach some stuff with Eco Gold X at our usual 1.5 concentration. Shaggy, I have plans of creating some sort of cool, destructive mayhem once I get a real furnace. I want to do it, you know. The goddess wants to break something just because, you know. Well, everybody else has taken off, and yes, the oxyotannurite is good at getting rid of things. But I have hydrazine. I get to play with that, and I figure that may get rid of things too, or at least shoot them into a low Earth orbit, which would be kind of cool, you know. I mean, it being a rocket fuel and all, it would be kind of cool. So let's see if there's anything in mining news this week that's of relative interest here. Goldman says, buy commodities now, worry about recession later. Absolutely. Yeah. Goldman Sachs Group urged investors to pile into commodities as most recession risks coursing through global markets are overblown in the near term, arguing that raw materials stand to rebound amid a profound energy crisis and tight physical fundamentals. Our economists view the risk of a recession outside Europe in the next 12 months as relatively low. Analysts, including Sabine Shells, Jeffrey Curry, and Damien Kervalen, wrote in a note. They wrote a note. With oil, the commodity of last resort, in an era of extreme, severe energy shortages, we believe the pullback in the entire oil complex provides an attractive entry point for long-only investments. Commodities hit a record in June as Russia's invasion of Ukraine disrupted output and snarled supply chains, then eased as recession concerns flared and central banks, including the Federal Reserve, tightened policies to contain inflation. Last week, Fed Chair Jerome Powell signaled more interest rate rises will follow this half, and global stocks hit a one-month low on Monday. From a cross-asset perspective, equities could suffer as inflation stays elevated, and the Fed is more likely to surprise on the hawkish side. Goldman said in a note, which was entitled, Buy Commodities Now, Worry About Recession Later. It added, commodities, on the other hand, are the best class assets to own during a late cycle phase where demand remains above supply. Okay, let's look at this. First, the goddess actually agrees, sort of, with Goldman Sachs. Or is that Goldman Sachs? You know, the goddess does wonder about this. The goddess agrees. We should be buying commodities like propane tanks full of propane and generators and 55-gallon drums filled with gasoline and stored in an ecologically responsible and safe manner with fuel stabilizers in them. And cows, live, that soon become cows, dead and in a freezer that has several sources of backup power to keeping things frozen. Oh yes, the goddess is very much in favor of buying commodities. The goddess does not believe that Goldman Sachs, is thinking about commodities in the same way. The goddess believes that Sachs is talking about those little pieces of paper and those little, 3 and 4 letter stock ticker type symbol type thingy weenies. In that case, the goddess does not approve. So sorry, but your fiat, the pretty colored toilet paper that says Federal Reserve note on it, or whatever your country calls yours, should be securely invested in physical metals that are in your possession, in physical commodities that are in your possession, in land that is, nominally speaking, in your possession. Because guess what, Goldman? We've already been in a recession for a while now. Just because Lord Malarkey and his minions saw fit to try to change the definition of the word recession does not mean that reality itself has been changed. And this is something that we have been discussing of late on Reddit, on Wall Street Silver, where my fellow silverbacks and I discuss the unfair manipulation and suppression of silver and gold prices. We'll get to that in a minute. You see, someone made a post and asked for everybody's elucidation. What we feel the most manipulated things in the world are. Silver, gold, oil, were all things that were bruited about. Everyone missed the 6,000-pound silverback gorilla in the room. One of the most manipulated things in the world right now is public perception. Because while Orwell wrote 1984 as a cautionary tale, it has now become an instruction manual for certain segments of our society, including Google and all of the rest of Alphabet and our federal government and the mainstream media. Public perception is one of the most manipulated things out there. This is something that the goddess has noticed developing over time and has viewed with, understandably, some measure of alarm here. Because when you manipulate language to change the meanings of things, and you manipulate how language is used, and you use your media and all of your sources of information along with your fact checkers to tell everybody that no, the sky is not blue, the sky is actually green or gray or yellow or whatever. You're manipulating public perception. Now, when it comes to metals, yes, the most manipulated thing in the world is people. And one of the tools that is used to manipulate them is public perception, is the way reality is framed by everybody around it, by everybody that does it. Okay? Over time. Now, we have to get back in the way back machine here for a moment and go back to the year 1971, when a certain gentleman by the name of Richard Milhouse Nixon, who had a very ugly nose and a very ugly face and an attitude very much like your average used car salesman, temporarily removed the dollar from the gold standard, decoupled fiat from sound money. This was a very temporary thing, according to Richard M. And he had ostensibly very good reasons for doing this. But it was only a temporary thing. Now, the government's definition of temporary, 50 some odd years later, yeah. Apparently, their definition of temporary is on a geologic scale as opposed to on a generational scale or on the scale that any normal human being would think of as temporary. We decoupled gold from our currency, and we made our currency fiat currency. Now, this was ostensibly done for very good reasons. Of course, the government's definition of a very good reason is not consistent with the goddess's definition of a very good reason. But it did have some very profound effects on the world that we are beginning to see now. Because sound money has sound rules. You cannot screw with sound money unless you go to a great deal of trouble and effort, and then people get very, very annoyed. Fiat currency does not operate on the same reality basis. It doesn't have nearly as many rules. As a matter of fact, it seems like people like Goldman Sachs make up the rules as they go along, which is fine with the federal government since they make up the rules as they go along as well. You know, barring pesky little things like the Constitution, which they tend to ignore, and, Congress, which actually seldom does their job anyway. So we moved away from sound money and we moved to this fiat bullshit. Well, as part of this playing outside of the sphere of rules and outside of the sphere of reality and common sense for the last 50 years, the prices of gold and silver have managed to become some of the most manipulated things on the planet, thanks to paper gold and paper silver. This does not happen nearly as much with oil or wheat or corn or pork bellies or soybeans, because the actual products involved in those cases are things that are far closer to your and my everyday life and have a far more direct impact on your and my everyday life on the face of it. Because when you artificially suppress the price of wheat and things, farmers stop farming a whole lot quicker, unless, of course, the government pays them not to farm in the first place. When you artificially suppress the price of oil so that people see, instead of $100 a barrel, $30 a barrel or $20 a barrel, people react a lot faster when they say, well, why is the price at the pump not going down instead of, why is it staying the same or going up instead of going down? There's a lot more real world impact in the manipulation of commodities, if they try, than there is in the manipulation of gold and silver. Because coincidentally, I'm sure, at about the same time, old Richard M. decided to put the final nail in the coffin of sound money and send us off into this happy little fiat land that we've been suffering in ever since, all of the financial markets and all of the media and all of the economics classes that embraced Keynesian economics and pie-in-the-sky bullshit fiat economics in general all began singing the same tune about sound money. Oh, sound money could only work in the ancient world because there were a lot less people and we weren't dealing with a global economy. Oh, the boomer rocks aren't really a hedge against inflation, because they're actually deflationary, as we saw in one article not too long ago. And deflationary things are actually bad for the economy and bad for the world and bad for the climate, and probably racist and misogynist and everything else. And there was a concerted campaign that happened from a wide variety of quarters to absolutely discredit gold and silver as possible money, and to completely downplay just how important they are in industry as well. So by the time you got to the Hunt brothers trying to short the market in silver with paper because they're damn idiots, you had people thinking of silver and gold as not even really relevant anymore. So on one hand, you have to keep the price of silver and gold artificially suppressed, because if you want that green new world that everybody keeps talking about, that's never going to happen if silver actually gets true price discovery. If copper even gets true price discovery, it won't happen because A, there just isn't enough of it to begin with, and B, since there isn't enough of it to begin with to do these grand things, the price would soar to unobtainium, and these green things could not happen. So they have every reason in the world to keep the price of silver and gold ridiculously low. Because if the prices of silver and gold are ridiculously low, then primary silver miners are sooner or later going to have to go into care and maintenance or sell themselves to one of those big conglomerates like Barrett or somebody to stay in operation at all, which is going to consolidate all the mines into a couple of nice little easy to manage companies. And as a side benefit from the federal government's point of view, they can say, well, since prices of these metals are so low now, there's no reason to keep the public lands open for the people to explore and open for mineral exploration, because these minerals are not commercially valuable. So we can close all that federal land, which means we get to keep land that we're not constitutionally supposed to have in the first place. And people who would think of buying physical gold and physical silver as a hedge against inflation can look at these years and decades of shitty prices and say, well, it's not even a good investment as inflation hedge. So, I might as well stick to owning my paper silver and my paper gold and, owning my stocks in a few things. And there's no need for me to buy the physical metal. Because think about this. We all know that our dear friends at COMEX, for instance, when it comes to silver, they're now down to about 65 million ounces in the vault. And we all know that there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in paper silver trading out there. Well, there's none in the vault, so that kind of makes life difficult. Because if the price of silver tomorrow skyrocketed to $50 an ounce, a lot of people that currently own little pieces of paper that say they own a COMEX bar or they own 1,000 ounces that Sprott is supposedly storing for them in the Royal Bank in Canada, like I would really trust them after that trucker business, are going to say, well, I'd like to take delivery of my silver now. Since it's worth twice as much, I want to see it and I want to hold it. And then we'd have a real problem. And we're already having that problem to some extent in gold, because those who watch the LME and the various gold vaults here and there have noticed that in the past couple of months, a whole lot more physical gold is being taken out of those vaults than has been showing up in those vaults. And the amount of paper gold running around is getting even higher. So at some point, somebody, whether it's some grandma who has 100 ounces in a gold IRA and decides she wants to keep it under her mattress, or some big investor has a couple of hundred COMEX bars on paper and decides he wants to move them into a private repository, is going to try to get their money, and they won't be able to get it. This is happening with fiat too, people. A couple of banks in England apparently are now notifying their depositors that starting this month, for no particular reason whatsoever, even if you have a checking account, you can't use paper checks anymore. Once you run out of the paper checks that are in your checkbook, you won't be able to get any more paper checks. You're going to have to use only electronic things to deal with your money. And you can't order any more paper checks. So that is kind of a little bizarre. If you have a checking account, then you will no longer be able to use paper checks. It is also kind of bizarre to see banks in England and some banks in America and some banks in Canada saying even if you have $50,000 in your bank account, you can only withdraw $200 a day now in cash from an ATM instead of $300 in cash or $400 in cash. And seeing some of these banks saying that we're going to limit your cash transaction at the counter to 2,000 pounds or 1,000 pounds a day, even if you have 50,000 pounds in the bank. So in other words, yeah, you supposedly and ostensibly have this money in the bank, but the bank is making sure that you can't take possession of it. And one has to wonder why that is. The goddess doesn't have to wonder, because the goddess has the common sense to keep as little money in a bank as humanly possible. And bear in mind, our bank is a nice, small, in-state bank that is not connected to anybody else's. It is insured by FDIC, but since FDIC doesn't have any money to cover all the deposits they supposedly insure, that's just nicety on paper. But one has to wonder about this. One really has to wonder about this. Good evening, Paul. Because it all comes back to, if you can't hold it, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. Banks are making it harder to get your money. A lot of the companies like PSLV, the Sprott physical silver thing, that say, oh, well, you're buying shares of physical silver and those shares are extant in the Royal Bank of Canada. They're in the Canadian vaults, and here's our audit sheet from this month that shows that we have this many thousands and thousands and thousands of ounces of silver in those vaults. Well, first of all, these are the same banks that shut off people's bank accounts for supporting the trucker convoy. So why would I trust my physical silver sitting in their vault in the first place? Okay. But more to the point, when you read the fine print on these types of paper silver transactions, well, you can't get your silver from PSLV as silver unless you own 10,000 shares. Yeah. So if you're a small fish and you're buying a physical silver product, supposedly, but it's in a paper form, like gold IRA or a silver IRA. When you read the fine print, a lot of times it turns out that you can't get your silver or you can't get your gold. And the ones that do let you get your silver or gold, well, you have to jump through 23 and a half hoops to get that physical product, and it costs you twice as much as the manipulated spot value to get it, which kind of makes you wonder if they have it in the first place. Because there was an interesting rumor around this week that COMEX is once again borrowing other people's physical silver. They are paying a rental fee to claim that they have somebody else's physical silver. Now, they're not trying to relate that to registered because they're not that stupid. But one has to wonder, if they really do have that silver in their vaults, why do they have to borrow somebody else's? The goddess wonders about things like this. The goddess really does. But back to the issue of the ersatz recession. Yes, indeed, we are in a recession. I'm betting that York's recession is going to get worse faster than our recession, because York tends to be ahead of the fashion trend on everything here. But yes, we are in a recession. And yes, Goldman Sachs is absolutely correct when they say buy commodities. The goddess approves. The commodities you should be buying are the ones that you physically hold that are in your house. And it should be noted that we can get local eggs at the tire store, where they're put in a little refrigerator by a local egg farm, and there's an honor box. The goddess is so happy, because not only are these local eggs that are larger than your average large grocery store eggs now, because large grocery store eggs are now at the lowest weight they have been per egg in a whole hell of a long time for a whole lot of reasons, but they taste better. They're from Happy Chickens. They have deep, very large, dark, glorious pumpkin-colored yolks. And 5 dozen of them are cheaper than 5 dozen large factory eggs at Walmart. Goddess is happy about this. One of the few happy points in my week this week. I was very happy. Yeah, Paul. I would not buy from gold. I would not buy gold or silver from one of those odds as seen on TV ads. If you're looking for good prices for gold and silver, there are quite a few good websites online, and I believe there's one called Find Bullion Prices that finds you the lowest spot price online. The goddess personally does not buy online because the goddess doesn't like a paper trail. I like privacy. I pay extra for privacy. So I go down to my local coin shop every single week and I buy silver. And I promptly lose that silver in a tragic boating accident. Not in the same lake where we lost the hunting rifle. And not in the same lake where we lost the gold. But, I really have bad luck with boats. And yes, I am a fan of buying from miners when I can, Kodak. I am a big fan of buying from miners. An acre garden would be pretty darn good. And yeah, Kodak, it's called shrinkflation. Candy bars did get smaller, the price did go up. Shrinkflation is really, really beginning to get out of hand in some quarters. The goddess has noticed this. It's very, very annoying. And I hope gold comes back, Paul. I really do. We need a return to sound money. We have needed a return to sound money for a long time. And if Vlad the Invader and his friends in BRICS keep pushing the way they are, we might just get it, because they're making some very, very aggressive noises about the fact that they can perfectly well do with the sound money currency between themselves, and they don't need to use the US dollar for everything. The only reason everybody uses the US dollar for everything is because they were forced to. At this point, nobody in their right mind should be trusting anybody's fiat currency. But considering the stuff coming out of, as somebody called it online the other day, Panem on the Potomac, love that one. I really don't trust our currency at this point. And yes, double dipping, shrinkflation. I have seen now shrinkflation in toothpaste and in toothbrushes. I have a manual toothbrush that costs more than the manual toothbrush that I had in my storage from 3 years ago. Same brand, 2 rows less of the little brushy widget gizmos that clean the teeth. The heads on electric toothbrushes are missing some bristles too. And has anybody noticed over the years the number of bristles in a brush is getting smaller? Combs, not so much, but combs themselves are getting smaller. And by the way, do not get me started on socks, because, folks, if anybody knows why this has happened, I would like to know why this has happened. I have looked everywhere recently for my black, fruit of the loom, over the calf athletic socks. Male. They come in a 7-pack. They're for me. Now, I'm not in love with these socks, okay? I bought them for years and years because I never got holes. As a matter of fact, the elastic wore out and they fall down, and I still don't get holes. The last year, I have been getting holes in my socks. I used to be able to buy a 6-pack of these socks and have them last 3 years before they fell down. They did not have holes, but they fell down. Last year, I bought a 6-pack of these socks with 1 bonus pair of socks. So I got 7 pairs of socks last year. And they all have holes, and they're all falling down and have been for months. So for months, I have been searching diligently for my over-the-calf black socks. White socks are a ridiculous innovation. I do not wear white socks, okay? Calf high socks and ankle socks, I do not wear. They must be over-the-calf socks. And they have disappeared. They have entirely disappeared. They have gone AWOL. And this is unacceptable. Last year, I bought 2 value packs of Fruit of the Loom ladies' intimate garments, to use the term that is on the sign at Walmart as opposed to underwear. In very ugly colors, I might add. In less than a year, they have developed holes. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but as far as I am concerned, the only underwear that should have holes in it is men's underwear. And the only hole that should be present in a man's underwear is the hole that Mr. Happy exits when the man is too darn lazy to drop his pants all the way to do a number 1, okay? I have never, ever in my life before this time gotten holes in underwear. And it is happening now. And my elastics are failing now. People, this is the most insidious form of shrinkflation. The form of shrinkflation where they say not only are you getting less in a package and not only are you paying more money for it, but the product is so damned shoddy that you must buy it twice as often. This is not acceptable. The goddess may have to resort to knitting her own socks again. And it's not that I don't know how to knit a sock, but really, it just takes so much time, you know. Yeah, it's horrible, Jeff. It really is. Yeah. I mean, it is just ridiculous what is going on with the whole thing. It really is. I have no idea where they've all gone. And this is the thing.
I'm sure that was.
The only over-the-calf socks that I was able to find at Walmart, they weren't even white. If I could have found white over-the-calf socks, I would have dyed them some other color. Because only an idiot wears white socks when you're mining. Mining is a dirty, dirty occupation, people. You don't wear white socks. You don't wear white anything if you don't have to. Okay? You've seen what Professor Hardrock's clothes look like. And mine, believe it or not, do not look much better. Okay? If I could have found over-the-calf socks that were not diabetic compression socks at $22 a pair, I would have bought them and dyed the damn things. But they've disappeared. And in what universe did somebody decide that men should be wearing footy socks? You know, the little kids that don't even cover the ankle that used to be only socks for chicks? Half of the socks, literally half of the socks in the male sock department, which is where I buy my socks. Half of the socks in the male sock department were wimpy chick footy socks. I don't even wear those. I don't wear them when they're women's socks. I never wore them because they're an idiotic idea. You get dirty ankles. What the hell? The goddess is incensed, okay? I can't get socks. This is a bad thing. I mean, it's just the way it is. Shaggy, this happened even when I was washing my socks and my underwear by hand in the sink, okay? I know how to take care of my unmentionables. Hello. And they never used to. I used to be able to throw them all in the laundry, in the hot water and the hot dryer for years and years, and nothing happened to them. This is an insidious plot to ensure planned obsolescence in all things. And in a related and unrelated kind of weird note on that issue, Tucson Electric Power has raised the rate to send a meter reading man out to read your meter if you refuse to get their smart meter. If you refuse to get their smart meter, you have to pay an extra $14 a month for the privilege of having a non-smart meter to begin with. And then every 3 months, you now have to pay $28 for some yo-yo to come out and read your meter. The goddess doesn't approve of this either. And in other unrelated news, apparently there's some sort of a wild and rather violent party going on in the green zone in Baghdad. And there may or may not be helicopters taking people out of an embassy. That still hasn't been confirmed. But yeah, there's some sort of a protest or uprising like the hundreds more that are going on around the world at the moment. Paul, I took care of the pear thing years ago. All of my socks look exactly alike. So if something happens to one of them, like a dryer eats it or it just disappears or something, you know, it goes into some black hole, you never have to worry. All of my socks are the same. The efficiency, efficiency. But anyway, silver and gold remain on sale, which is why it's a good idea to buy as much as you can. At the moment, some meats are still on sale. It's a good idea to buy as much as you can and can it up or put it in your freezer or freeze dry it or otherwise, because, otherwise we're all going to be eating Z-bugs anyway. All same color socks. Yes, absolutely. And that's my rant for this week. Bye.
Yeah, let's try and fill some jars when we take this week off too.
Absolutely. Already planning to.
Yep. Oh.
Can't even get socks anymore. This world is going to hell.
Well, pretty much. Oh. Well, he and I were having a bit of discussion. So we didn't hear all the ranting, but I hope you had a good time, everybody. Can't wash your clothes in it. Shaggy says, "Have a good week."
You too, Shaggy.
Yeah, Eva is kind of weird. She thinks I'm weird because I go to bed with socks on my feet, and she says it looks really, really weird. And it's like, yeah, but my toes aren't cold, you know. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
hilarious.
John, we're here again.
Keep it sane, Eva. Ooh, challenge. How about appearing sane? Is that adequate?
Always keep it sane. I am the sanest person on this damn planet at this point.
Doesn't take much.
Never said it did.
Anyhow, for the latecomers, we'll get back. We posted a video today on some.
Check it.
Well, let's see which email here. Let me see. There's a new one there.
It's so bright on that back screen.
Oh yeah. Okay. I probably should wait till after the live stream on that, Richard. But yes, I do have your video. Let's see. What am I doing here? Dumbass. Go to this and mark it as unread. Okay. Also got a bunch of stuff showing up this week.
Yeah.
Okay. Maintain the verisimilitude of sanity. Yeah, pretty much. Anyhow, so put a video up today on the new modified bits for the demolition hammers. They do work better, but not extraordinarily well. I was really hoping that would tear up that really hard quartz, but it did tear up the not quite so hard quartz. So that it was definite improvement there. And since you're using the old bits that are all worn out, supposedly, it's great. It also stayed reasonably sharp, as you'll see in the next video, which I shall post tomorrow because I didn't have time to get it compiled and stuff today. You'll also see with greater clarity how complicated the vein is that we're working on and how the rock changes inch by inch. You know, this,
Limonite.
Look at how sharp that edge is.
Yep.
This looks about the same color, but it's a lot harder. I mean, just changing inch by inch. Yep. And so it's very complicated. We're trying to figure out what's happening. And I don't know. Eva, did you hear we got the results back from the lab today?
The liquid from locally, yes. I
Yeah,
did
okay.
not hear from the others, no.
No, we didn't send off any for fire assay. So, okay. So the grade is coming up some, but
A 25% increase.
yeah, Shaggy, it shows a lot of different events going on at different times. I would agree with that.
Yep.
One event isn't going to cause this kind of changes. But yeah, you have different pulses of solutions doing different things at different times. Who knows how far apart? I mean, for all I know, millions of years. Haven't the faintest idea. Doesn't much matter to me. What matters is how much gold, how do I get it out?
Right.
You know,
Find the gold.
I'm kind of a simple-minded person in some ways. The production is running at good speed. The mill is running at good speed. I will need to take the student Roth apart if somebody isn't using Lauren this week.
He's trying to finish a job that he's
I know.
been, working on forever.
I know.
And
It's a pretty big job.
it's a big job. Joe was down there today helping him.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
I think he's helping him tomorrow. I may go help him on Wednesday.
Yeah, I may go down there and help him out too.
Yeah, just to try to help him get that done.
Well, if you're asking someone to interrupt stuff for you, then you're okay.
Yeah,
let me help
that's
you get
what
it
I
done.
told him.
Yep.
I want to get digging on footings at some point, and if it means helping him get done with his stuff, fine.
Yep.
Let's do it.
So anyhow, by the way, Lauren, if you haven't had a chance to get that jaw hard faced, I have another one that's cracked, but it's still usable for this week probably if it doesn't fail any further. And it ran for a day or two after it cracked, so I don't think it'll be a problem to do that. But Assay, so just let me know on that one. I understand I'm asking a lot here. Oh, I got to put the air shocks on the back of my truck. And gosh, I don't know. So many things. If I get a placer, how hard is it to add a
Load on the site.
Oh, if you have a placer claim, how hard is it to add?
Load.
Yeah.
You just file for load.
Yeah, you
on
just
the
file
same-
a load claim. You'd need to have a discovery to make it legit. You need to have a discovery, but that's
Just
not-
you
not a-
file it the same way, basically.
yeah. Just file it the same way, and
Unless the placer's got a lot of angles and curves, they may make you lay a load claim somewhat straight.
and lately in Montana, which I wasn't aware of until they told me, you need to file an aliquot map too,
Yep.
which shows how the claim is set
Yep.
on that section, so they can put it in their computer, which they can't get anything up on. So that's an additional requirement. It's purely BLM. It's not required by the the standard procedure, but they won't do it if you don't send it with. So just be aware. That's probably national at this point.
I think it is. They're trying to be able to map this stuff.
Wow, the
walk
Iraqi
back out
presidential
there.
palace got stormed.
My guess is in the future they'll come out and check claims like they used to too at some point.
They
They
can
wanna
do
see
it
all
without
four
getting
corners.
shot.
Yeah.
They require just a sketch map, not on a section.
Yep.
You have to describe where this is with respect to some easily identifiable geographic feature, blah, 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 but not here's the claim on a map. Yep. The right rocks are pretty interesting. If it hurts your arm picking the rock up, look twice. Well, this is amazingly heavy for a rock with a bunch of holes in it. It's
Yeah,
probably
so
about
feel-
30% iron, because that stuff from
Yeah.
Pack Rat Penthouse, which looks just like this. Now, this is from a pocket that was in the wall right there. And I suspect it's just a pocket, not the start of a bigger structure, but we will find out as we dig down.
Yeah.
And we expose more. Right now, it's basically about the low
John,
grade.
actually load claims usually follow the strike or how you think the mineralization lays. But like placer, they would let you stake based on the drainage. So you could follow the curves and just take the width of the drainage or whatever historically. Even they've started to try to reclassify some of that because we did one and I had to get OKs from BLM to do it
Uh-huh.
in southern Montana that we took. It was original claim block of about 500 acres,
Uh-huh.
but it went for like 5 miles.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Following of drainage.
we narrowed it down to like small little cubes and eliminated a lot of the stuff that was originally claimed on it
Yeah.
to clean it up. But it ended up to have, if I remember correctly, it had 132 corners
Mhm.
when we were done. And I had to get it okayed from them because I said, this is going to be bad in
Yeah.
how we're doing it. Because we went in and out and we only took in the placer basically and a little bit outside of the placer.
Yeah.
And they're like, yep, we'll let you do that. Well, after we did it, they said, don't ever do that again.
We will hurt you.
Yeah, do not ever do that again. And I said, I asked, yeah, I wanted to make sure I could do it.
Well, when we sent off the resin to the assayer to have him assay it,
Yeah.
when it came back and everything, because I asked him how much it was going to be, because
Yeah.
I think it was like 60 instead of 45 or whatever. When it came back, it was basically, had to do this, blah, 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 blah. And I prefer not to have to do this again.
Yeah, right. Please don't ask me to do that again. No.
It matched our numbers.
Well, yeah, and we
So.
actually, that project down there, we cleaned it up by doing what we did, but it got really complicated because of how the corners ended up going off this way and that way. And
Yes.
if you
That's the
look
way
at-
government does things. We're going to fix it by making it more complicated.
right?
You're a bureaucrat. Get away. Yeah.
Pretty much.
This is our job. Don't make us work. Yeah. And Montana, they're overworked.
They are like BLM here and that. There's been so much staking. There's been some big mining companies in here. There's a lot going on, and they're 6 months, 8 months behind on getting that stuff even on their computer.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a mess.
And of course, the current administration is not going to add personnel to help the mining industry.
Oh, no.
So, anyhow, so that's basically what Eve and I have been doing, and we were very happy with what we accomplished this 3 days. I think for two old geezers, a geezer and a geezerette, I think we did a
Pretty
fair
good.
amount.
Yeah. Well,
We sank it down another.
slow
I think
and
you mean a
steady.
geezer and a goddess. Hello.
Yeah. Slow and steady.
I sit corrected. Yep, some rocks are crazy heavy, but those are the interesting ones. Yeah, that's the funny thing. Sometimes they work harder at not working than the working would be.
Right. They'd be done with it if they just did it.
One thing that always cracks me up too is people that are lazy at work and then pay money to go to a gym.
Yeah.
It's like, why don't you just work at work and save the time and money? Yo,
Nothing's supposed to make
that
sense
explains.
anymore.
Yeah, that sounds about right, John.
Yeah, there's been plenty of issues in the past, especially, John, that it's not good.
Well, that's why we got into trouble with this one, is
Yep.
because it's not on the BLM databases, and so this other guy comes in and says, "Well, it must be open ground." It's like, no,
No, it isn't.
it's not.
But that's another reason you have to put boots on the ground.
Did you
because-
call them?
Yeah, I tried to that day, and
I
I
left a message.
Yep.
Me too. You got a
I did.
response?
Nope.
Nope. Same here.
No, you're best to just call right to Kim down there at the office.
Let's say I don't know. Last I
They're
heard,
pretty good, but they're so overworked right now with what's going on that
the claim owner put in a call to the lawyer you recommended and had not received a return call. But that was 4 days old, so I'm not sure what's going on.
okay.
Forgot to ask today. As Eve and I go out in the field and disappear.
Just all you can do is keep stopping back up there, make sure your corners are all good, keep it,
Yeah.
stay on the good side of everything.
Well, and
But and to all of you guys, I mean, you got your annual filing here September 1st. You make sure that is done and your money's in. But then go back to your claims if you can before winter and verify that everything is as it's supposed to be and keep it that way.
I got a question. When you have a choice, because I mean, where you're putting a claim corner, usually you've got a few feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Um,
It's not perfect.
do you want to put it where it's easily seen or not so easily seen?
I usually will try to put it where it's easily seen because then there's not a dispute that there it is.
Well,
But I mean, if it's up by a road corner or something where there's a lot of activity or something, I'll try to put it in
Behind
behind
that
a
little
brush
tree.
or whatever. Yeah, just so
Yeah.
it's not so obvious that it becomes target practice or whatever.
if you get a claim that's already on file, would that mean it could not be on file? Well, generally, the BLM does not adjudicate anything unless they're asked to.
Right.
For example, if he filed a claim on a piece of property and then I come in and I stake right over top of him, BLM's going to accept that paperwork.
They'll accept your money from both of you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
they
a
will,
problem.
and they will only adjudicate it if he files a complaint saying that asshole Keith Bowen overstaked my frickin' claim and you need to straighten this out. Then in sometime before the next century, they may get around to fixing it.
I recently had that scenario where we went in and put load claims, blanketed an area, and we went across the placers with load claims. And right away, the guys were screaming at me that, hey, you put a corner right in the middle of over on my placer claim. And it's like, yeah, but if you read the paperwork or you would have checked on it, it's all load claims that you guys could have filed on them, but you didn't do that. And I did.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, at that point. But at first they're all mad because they thought I overstaked everything on them. And I'm like, well, yeah, I did overstake you, but it's on a whole different thing.
Well, and you're allowed.
Yeah, you
to
can overstake. Yeah, you can stake.
It doesn't give you the right.
No, but when it's allocated, when they adjudicate it at BLM, they will, if I overstaked onto another load claim, they would just take that piece out. Okay, that isn't yours, that's his. And it will get adjudicated to where it's correct. You had one on the board the other night last Monday night. I didn't watch it till the next day, but you had where a claim was laying like this, and all the other claims were basically square to it.
Yep.
Well, when you got those little pieces, sometimes they'll turn two of those into one claim and two into another claim to adjudicate it so that guy's claim stays intact, how screwed up it is, and you get everything else. And sometimes they'll make each one of those little pieces be a claim by itself. They don't like to do that because you end up with these, claims that are 1 acre or something like that, some dumb little piece. So they'll usually try to group, they'll figure out how to group it against that existing claim.
So now Chris is bringing up load over placer is a potential problem. Depends on where your discovery is, I think, Chris. I think that's the main issue.
Not so much, Chris, because placer in court cases, placer is pretty much what is easily diggable. That's just even if it's an excavator and you can rip into the bedrock to a certain extent, that's still placer if it's placerable. But at a certain point, it changes to load, and you legally can't placer load if that's the case. If you have to start crushing rock, now it's load.
I think what he was saying is legally, because if let's suppose the guy had nothing but placer claims out there, and he completely blanketed the whole section.
Yeah.
How do you make a discovery for a load claim? Now I can think of a couple
assays and rock samples.
Well, how did you get the rock sample?
As long as you're not metal detecting and putting nuggets in your pocket.
Well, see,
they can't stop you from like that. Maybe, like in our case, what we did out here on this copper mine and that, because we went across everybody.
Yeah.
We were using aerial magnetics, and we were using a lot more modern science to the theory of what we were doing without going on the ground in that case.
That's what I was trying to point out.
And that is legal.
And also, let's say there's an adit there. Okay. So you walk across the guy's placer claims, which are not marked no trespassing. It's not an
Can't
active
mark
mining
them.
area. If it was an active mining area, it could be
Right,
for
you could
safety
limit,
reasons.
limit access.
So you walk across there, and then you walk into the adit, and you see a vein. You take a sample of that. You're not hurting his mineral. You're not interfering with his discovery.
No, his is on the surface.
Yeah, and so that's, I think, what Chris was talking about. You have to have a discovery that does not involve digging through his placer to make it.
Right, correct.
You know, but if you can do that, it's legitimate. Or if your discovery is, let's say you had a vein and it's crossing a creek,
Right.
and this guy's got a placer along the creek, well, off of his claim,
You got
just take a discovery,
Yep, and then shoot
then-
your strike.
and then go across
Right.
there, and you can do it that way too. But it's the discovery is the thing that you need to make legal. Everything else is pretty simple, and you can overstake someone else's claim, and in many cases it's done deliberately to avoid any unclaimed ground.
Correct.
You'll deliberately go a couple feet onto that guy's claim and put your stakes.
So there's no disputable ground between you.
Yeah, disputable. That's a good way to put it.
There's no disputable ground.
Gold pandan, that would be pretty tricky to do because you're now disturbing his mineral estate. Well,
here's another case. You have a placer claim and the county decides they're putting a road in to get to something else. They cannot disturb your ground on a placer claim without making accommodations with you as to what the value of that ground is to put that driveway in.
damn, the grade just went up.
Yeah, well, no, honestly, they'll bring a mineral inspector out there and dig, and if they find anything right away, then it's going to have a dollar value. That's going to be, you're going to have some agreement and negotiation as to what that driveway is going to cost to go across that placer claim, or a logging road, maybe. That's another scenario that you've got a placer claim, and now they want to put a logging road across the end of it there. Well, first you have to determine the value of that ground.
Yep.
And you guys will run into these scenarios at some point on these mining claims and mining properties. There's a lot of little intricacies that show up that you own that mineral and that the rights to that, and they cannot interfere with that.
Yeah, and that's the situation gold pandan. Plus, let's suppose, as you're well aware, the gold tends to be located in certain layers.
Mm-hmm.
If you just dig it out of the way and throw it away, you're blending it.
Right, you've screwed that.
So now
up.
you're costing money to the guy. Now, what you might be able to do is work a deal and say, well, look, we'll excavate this for you to your specifications if you want.
Right, we're taking the gravel.
On the other hand, if you're not open pitting it, if you're undergrounding it, you just drive under.
Yeah. No, those are some scenarios that can come up, though, that there is court cases on most of this stuff. There's some good mining books. Almost anything you can think of has been tried in court.
Yeah,
believe it or not.
Pretty much.
And some of it historically goes back quite far, and most of the time it went with the mineral holder. So
yeah, now it's hard to tell because, of course, the current government doesn't care about the law.
Right.
Makes it a lot harder to predict.
Well, they care about it when you start throwing it in front of them. If the subject never comes up or you never bring up an old court case and they're not aware of it, then they don't care.
Yeah. I mean, it's very complicated. But again, the current administration doesn't seem to care about precedent and the law and things like that either. A lot of this stuff is, what do they call it? Case law.
Correct.
But not regulation.
No.
As such,
it depends on what level of court it was tried in.
Yeah, it can get kind of complicated at times. Of course, Chris.
Yeah, well, you're in an interesting area there with underground placer.
Yeah, but if you want to wait around that long, John, me, I'd rather go fishing. I may actually get to do that this weekend. We'll see.
Yeah, you probably should.
I should probably take some time off. Problem with me, just sitting around doing nothing is not taking time off.
No,
I have to do something, just not physically strenuous.
go fishing.
Eva's got lots of stuff she needs to do in the lab to fill in some question marks she's got. And we'll go from there. By the way, Lars, did you know, if you're still here, did you notice I gave you the picture of that relay on the thumbnail for this? Yeah, Chris. Would you rent a boat? Probably not. There's plenty of shore fishing around here.
Yeah.
If I was going to go anywhere, probably go down to Hauser Dam. Well, I might go to Holter. I haven't fished Holter yet. I hear the perch are pretty good down there. So I have to check that out. It's not
I'd like
too
to
far.
go to Holter.
There we go. Probably going to Holter.
Where did we go where you caught that beautiful brown trout that time that we had to
Yeah,
come back?
just below the dam. Yeah, that was Holter. Yep. That was a nice brown.
There's some nice fish down there.
Yeah. So I say it's hard to tell, but I do need physically some rest. Neva needs physically some rest, but there's a difference between physical rest and relaxation.
Yep.
Sometimes relaxation does not mean doing nothing. I think these fish in the Missouri are tested on a regular basis. For example, over here in Spring Meadow, I know you're not supposed to eat more than such and such fish there.
Good job, Dan.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dan, I know. I'm not sure what I'm going to do this winter. Depends on how serious the winter is. A lot of last winter, you could still fish.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't that harsh?
It just depends on the winter.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, in these places where like water isn't liquid at all times, it's just weird, man. You got to schedule these things. Good night, David.
Yeah, thanks for being here, David.
Good night, David.
If so, I'm not eating them, Kodak. Get a nasty case of spike protein that way.
Cool.
What's your throughput, Dan? How many pounds an hour is it? A little one or a medium size, or how big is that rascal? Yeah, that's not bad then. Medium size ish. Eva wants to be doing rock assays, and I don't think she has thoroughly calibrated exactly how much effort it takes to pulverize stuff.
Clean the mill.
I'm thinking that maybe something like a little Cobra Crusher sort of deal, where you put it in there, close the lid, it's a sealed container, run it, stop, dump it out,
yeah.
blow it out, and then do the next sample. That's pretty good, Dan.
Yeah,
500 pounds an hour. That's
a good little mill then.
Decent sized mill. For a pulverizer, yeah, you'd want 1/2 inch or smaller. Ring and puck is the only sane option. Got one for sale? Ring and puck. I've never even seen a ring and puck crusher. I'm not sure what it is. I know what a disc grinder is. Let's see. Ring and puck. that a grinder or crusher? I guess it's pulverizer. Ring and puck pulverizer. What the hell does that look like? Ring and puck mill. A shatter box.
Okay.
Let's see if we got a video of it. Oh, let's see. Only $12,790.
Pretty good size mill.
Ouch.
I want one.
Pressure, impact, and friction. Bin containing grinding rings and a puck is driven by a rotating eccentric and things content on a horizontal plane at precise speed and distance for maximum grinding. Grindable
So
block
this
security.
means you and Lauren are gonna build me one, right?
Doesn't seem likely. Wet or dry samples of half-inch maximum feed size are rapidly reduced to a final particle size of 150 to 38 micrometers, 100 to 400 mesh.
Oh, you and Lauren gotta build me one.
Oh,
The included chrome steel alloy grinding set has 250 milliliter sample capacity and consists of an 8-inch bowl and cover, 2 rings, and a puck. For more efficient processing, additional grinding sets can be ordered as LCA 240 and the LCA 242 tungsten carbide grinding set. Whoa, that's some good shit, man.
Okay, so I mean,
Yeah, for only $12,000.
no, you're gonna build me one.
Yeah, right.
back to the impact mill.
Ring and puck pulverizer G-Tech. Okay, let's see. Ring and puck pulverizer from G-Tech. Lab crusher. Medium hardened brittle material.
I have utter confidence in your ability to build me anything.
Fully closed bowl with ring and puck, especially when it drives the power rotate, vibration plate. Ring. I'm not sure exactly how it works. It's not easy to tell. It looks like they got 4 chambers here. That'd be my guess. Anyhow, it sounds like a chamber that has some stuff in it that rattles back and forth when it does its little thing. Oh my goodness.
Secret term.
Hey, Bryce, how's it going?
Okay, Bryce.
Yeah. I got the jaw crusher. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
But as I say, it sounds almost like a horizontal mill, so to speak. It's just shaking, beats things up.
Interesting.
I think that extreme precision is more desired than necessary in our case.
Yeah. I mean, if
those numbers have to be that precise, we're going to lose money.
Yeah.
I want them precise.
I know you want them precise. Oh, well. So, anyhow, as I say, for something cheap,
Yeah.
I think a little impact crusher with a easily cleanable chamber and stuff would work just fine.
Actually, that little mill I've got does that. I can quick pull the cover off it, sweep it out, blow it out.
Blow it out.
Yeah. For doing small samples, it's great. For trying to do any level of, you start doing 5-gallon buckets of rock, it's
I
a
only
slow
need to grind
process.
29.166.
I know. That's why I say something
Yeah.
about the size of a Cobra crusher with a sealed chamber instead of the
Right.
pour it in sort of thing. Yeah, well, Paul, she wants to do it, 100% passing 100 mesh. Well blended with the flux ingredients, etc. And
The book says that's what you do.
they didn't have Cobra crushers in 1935. Okay.
And they
Lot better
manage.
equipment.
And they managed. Yes, they had strong people who got paid by the hour. Not a little old lady.
Yeah.
Say it's. I'm a big, strong guy. I don't want to play that game.
No, sitting there hand crushing rock is not
And pulverizing.
Yeah.
100% passing 100 mesh.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
No.
Say instead, just take your whole charge, weigh it out, pour everything in there, close the lid for 30 seconds, let it sit for a while, open it up. I don't doubt it, Chris. Ball mills have been around a long time too. Steam engines have been around a long time. It doesn't mean I have to use one. Yeah. I'm sure they work just fine. I saw that Vanner table over there at what's the name of that place at Camp Butte too. Didn't look terribly useful to me. It does a very particular thing, which I don't need to do.
Right, don't need it. Yeah.
Laziest mind finds the easiest way. If he's a smart lazy man as opposed to a stupid lazy man. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's how a lot of good ideas have come along.
That's right. It's like, man, this sucks. There's got to be a better way
to do this.
That's called being an efficiency expert.
By the way, years ago, for example, we're doing the kettle corn. And I got all these different people. Now, I can sit there and salt the kettle corn by just timing it.
Right.
You'd be surprised how hard that is to teach to people. They just can't seem to get it right. So I wanted to make a salt shaker that would only put out so much salt each time. It would hold more than that, a lot more than that.
Right.
And so I came up with a design, did a few tests and everything. It seemed to work. 3 years later, I saw something basically the same
On the market.
at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Same problem. How do you get the fries salted properly?
Correct.
Oh, yeah. That's because people are too stupid to salt properly.
Something similar. I think just a chain mill would be enough, Paul. You just run it a little longer because, again, if it's a closed container, then you just run it for a certain time period and it'll beat stuff up.
Yeah, I'll agree with that, Tricky. That's a cheap way to do it right there.
Yeah, she just wants
a
a
concrete mixer and throw it in.
She just wants 100% passing 100 mesh at 35 gram samples and easily, thoroughly cleanable between samples.
Yep.
I say, so you have to contain everything while you pulverize it and then be able to clean thoroughly afterwards. And let's say something like a little Cobra crusher type mill without the inlet thing would probably work great. Yeah, I say, but again, it's slow. It requires strength, and especially when you're dealing with stuff like lead oxide, you don't want dust flying around.
No,
not a good thing. Oh, I don't disagree, Chris. All I'm saying is there's probably something out there that we can buy complete for less than $500, brand new, that would probably do the job pretty darn well. Say you don't want a feed chute. You want just a simple chamber, an impactor, probably a chain mill, and a tight fitting cover. Oh. Oh. Angle grinder crusher. You see, a Cobra crusher last I checked was about $250. Angle grinders. Portable rock crusher powered by an angle grinder. $290. Looks like a Cobra crusher. So you just close that off and just have the cover. See? There you go. $290 plus a grinder. You know?
You can build one.
Maybe, but it's probably cheaper to buy something that inexpensive.
And you can use it the minute it lands too.
Yeah, I mean,
You're right to work.
to get everything working properly takes some trial and error. And for $250, you don't have much leeway for trial and error before you've gone too high. Well, this one was 200 and what was it?
290.
290. You returned the one I was giving you. Yeah, let's say for a Cobra crusher. Yeah, I'd have to take a look. But again, that's the sort of thing. What was that one? It was an Australian thing. What's the name of that thing?
I don't know.
And I mean, it
If
was
I
basically.
heard it, I would probably know, but
And it was something very similar to that. And it seemed to work really well. Sorry, Gold Pandan. Want to spend a little more time not busting rocks. No, Chris. For high precision, that's what you want. Absolutely. If you're dealing with high grade ore, low grade ore, waste, looking for geochemical precision, absolutely. On the other hand, if you just need to get within 5 or 10%, not so much. You know?
yep, I'd agree.
Again, are we at 1 ounce per ton or 1.1 ounce per ton?
Right.
It's ore.
I want precision.
Fine. Come up with the thousands of dollars for precision. It's only $12,000. You got
How
it?
do you ever pay for that?
I ain't got it. Say big labs can do that stuff.
Oh yeah,
Sure.
or a big mine that has to test constantly, you know.
First particle of coarse gold will screw any subsequent sample. For how long? I know exactly what you're saying, Chris. Say, I'm not dealing with minor stuff here. Let's suppose, for the sake of argument, that you have give me a gold particle size, Chris. Just whip one off your head. Coarse gold particle that's stuck somewhere in that mill that you can't see or clean out. Okay, just a solid chunk of hard steel and a piece of pipe with rubber and a couple of steel plates. Okay, 2 millimeter. Okay. What's the weight of a 2 millimeter gold sphere? Okay. Now, that's going to be really big, especially as mine's 80% passing 6.8 microns. But assuming you've got a 2 millimeter gold sphere somewhere in a crusher that big that you can't see and is stuck there, good luck. Yeah, you could contaminate quite a few samples until it came out. I would agree with that. I don't agree that you could have a 2 millimeter sphere that you're not going to see inside a crusher that big when you clean it out each time. That doesn't make sense to me. Again, with the puck mill, Have you got a design? I don't need an idea. I need a design. This is what everyone does. Why don't you just do this? Could you give me a plan with
No.
dimensions and sources of materials and what the bearing is and what this and that and the other? That's what I need. Otherwise, I got to spend hours and hours and hours figuring all
Yeah.
this stuff out.
Just-
You know, I say, so far we have yet to find a single chunk of gold bigger than 50 mesh, you know, and would it spill all over those unwelded gaps? Who says they're unwelded? Who says a certain friend of mine couldn't TIG weld any gaps?
Yep, you could.
You know, say, I don't know. You could make a ball mill, yes, that has a 30-gram sample and then another 30-gram sample with no cross-contamination. Good luck on that one. It has to be a small thing to make cross-contamination. First of all, small. Secondly of all, to make a 30-gram sample, a decent size.
You're talking a shot glass full of rock.
Yeah.
You're not,
That's it.
3 tablespoons of rock?
Yeah. We're talking, what, like that much rock?
Yeah.
A little bit more, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe just a hair more, but not
Yeah.
much.
Not much. So it doesn't take much. I'll say, if you've got a design for a ring and puck mill, so show me a ring and puck mill design or a ring and puck mill I can buy cheap and fast or make cheap and fast, Chris. You know, JB Weld and silicone will quickly abrade in the very harsh environment of an impact mill. Yeah, you pretty much. And how do you clean the balls, Chris? And how do you keep your 2-millimeter ball of gold from not smearing all over those balls? You know, to me, a ball mill would be a lot harder to clean out. Ceramic balls. Everyone with these ball jokes.
I'm a chick. I don't clean balls.
Yeah. What is a ring and puck? Puck. It's basically some kind of a chamber that has some free-floating parts inside that it shakes and vibrates and rolls and so that these parts beat against the rock and smack it and crush it and grind it. It sounds like a great idea. The idea of trying to get something that shakes violently enough to break rock cheaply sounds a little bit more difficult. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I say there's a certain cost benefit analysis. Not unlike a single rod mill. Yeah, that could work too. I bet you it would take me more than $250 and, you know, a little bit of time to do it. Again, that's it. It's like, we're not building a real assay lab here.
No.
Now, the claim owner did send me a link. Some assay lab went out of business or whatever and sold the whole lab. So he said, a present for Eva? But the link was already dead by the time I got it. So I thought
would've
somebody
loved
bought it
it.
all. Take care, Tricky.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Tricky.
Yeah, Kodak, that's bigger than what we need. Again, we're only talking that. That's your sample.
Piece of well casing and
Yeah, piece of well casing, a rotor.
make a good cover.
Yeah, a good cover, and you could have a solid impactor or a chainmail, either one. The nice thing about chainmail is you can pretty much replace them easily.
Fairly, yes.
You know,
You can buy some Rockwell 70 or 80 chain.
where do you buy that at?
I got a source at home,
Okay. He's got a link.
and I got a link. I'd have to go dig it up,
But yeah, I'd say that's, again,
and you can hard face some of that too if you want.
you could.
You know,
Well, it'd probably be
quick-
easier if you
quick
had an
and dirty,
actual
but-
rotor to hard face. Chain is a lot harder to pick a particular wear edge. There you go. I like that. A magic bullet. No. I know what you mean, the little blender thingy.
Yeah,
It wouldn't last very long. The basic concept, if
It's a
it was
good idea.
durable
Yeah.
enough,
it
would
is
work
good,
fine.
Right, it is a good concept.
Gyratory crusher?
A real gyratory crusher is designed to make big rocks into smaller rocks.
right?
Not powder.
Not powder. Yep. You need
Yeah.
something that'll make it talcum powder.
That's why disc grinders are so popular. They're real easy
Well,
to
it's a
work with.
simple solution.
Yeah.
Simple pieces.
Yeah. Well, as I explained to Eva, I can use my Hilti to drive the Mad Max.
Yeah.
There's a reason it's got a pipe. 'Cause I got one of my old bits cut off, and inside the pipe there's a piece of steel rod, so that you just slide the bit in there and.
That's a good idea, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. 8-inch diameter, 2-inch wide, and an eccentric on a motor. Yeah, that sounds easy and no bearings. What do you mean no bearings, Chris? Eccentric? I don't suppose that eccentric shaft is going to ride on Play-Doh. I would think there'd be bearings there and seals.
sounds like a plan, Paul. If it works, hey,
Front end and seal on a brake drum. Brake drums are nice because they're easy to replace.
yeah.
Sounds fine to me. I didn't say I was going to have bearings inside the chamber. Yours has an eccentric shaft with something going around. I don't really see, if you have an eccentric shaft, the shaft has to come through a housing, correct? And somewhere there has to be a seal. Now the bearings can be outside. It's just shaking the thing. Oh, I see. So the chamber is on an eccentric. Okay. Which the vibration would be horrendous if you didn't have a way of making it really heavy and tough.
Well,
Because if you got something like that that's shaking hard enough to basically roll the piece of steel around the inside, which is fine. You know, you're just shaking it from the outside like this and rolling around. We used to do, kids were used to do that, where you spin something around. I don't know, but anyhow, yeah, you can get
ring
something
on a
spinning.
stick or whatever.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I
There
get
you go,
the
like a
picture.
hula hoop
Yeah,
sort of
right.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Chris. Fine. You know. Yeah.
If you build something, I want it.
Yeah.
Oh, there's probably 100 ways
Yeah,
to
I
go
saw
at
it,
but-
Paul. So I've already done one of those, by the way. I don't use an air hammer. I use an electric demolition hammer, the Hilti. The Hilti is the Mad Max mortar and pestle is specifically designed to be powered by the Hilti if wanted. Oh. Anyhow,
Yeah.
I say it's all in the future. Everyone's worried about stuff. By the time we get to that point, the apocalypse may have been over. You know? Can you dig placer on an existing load? Not anymore, you can't. You have to have a placer claim also, as far as I understand. Correct, Chris? Although it's pretty stupid to me. If you have a load claim and there's no other contesting claims, why can't you dig the placer on it? What do you know? Anything on that?
I really don't know a lot. I mean, they've convoluted this thing because historically, once you had a mineral claim, it kind of kept everybody else out of the program. But when they started calling waste dumps on a load claim placer, that created a whole new thought process here.
Yeah, but Chris, here's a question for you. Now, it used to not matter because the load claim included the placer. Then they went and changed the rule. Remember how I said it's not a law, it's a regulation?
Yeah.
And they change it? Okay. So why do you have to stake the placer? Because once you got the placer, you can't stake the load if it was a contested thing. If I staked a placer and it completely covered everything, and he wants to come in and stake a load that doesn't encroach from another direction or something like that, he can't do it because he can't get a discovery. On the other hand, if I have a load claim and I want to go stake a placer on top of it, why can't I get a discovery and stake a placer claim? What's the deal here? Why did they come up with this insanity? I can see how you couldn't exploit the placer theoretically, and you'd be leaving yourself up for someone else staking the placer. Well, what if you don't? You know, I'll say that this is the thing, is that it used to be load included placer and excluded anyone else from staking the placer.
But not so.
You know, once you staked a load, you owned the load and everything above the load. That's the way it used to be. Makes sense to me. You know, it has to be eminently cleanable, Paul. That's one of the keys for what we're doing, is you don't want cross contamination. So you have to be able to clean it very thoroughly. It goes quite a ways back. Okay, before 1980.
Yeah, historically that does go back, because that's how a lot of the loads that were staked were from the placer workings.
Well, yeah, you can go that way,
Right.
but Assay, it used to be if you stake the load, you owned the placer too. You know, Fred can't come and stake a placer claim over your load claim.
Well, that's somewhat changed when they came out with metal detectors and things like that. That's where you come into a problem, because when a guy could walk across the ground and pick up a nugget on the surface that isn't load, that's when they got a little freer with the way the regulations are, as far as who. In Montana, you can stake them either way. You can stake a load on a placer or a placer on a load, and they don't care. They'll accept your money and they'll file. It'll file.
Yeah. Say, see, that's the thing here, is they keep changing the rules. Now, see, Chris is going, you need to stake the placer first. Why? That's completely arbitrary and capricious.
That's true, Chris. Historically, the mining rules were written separately, even in an existing mining district.
I can understand that.
Placer was one group of guys, and load was a whole different group with two sets of rules.
Yeah. So
and some of that still holds precedent, as far as if there was good notes from the mining district, that's the way it is in that district, actually.
Would the mining districts ever disappear?
No, but they can go inactive, and that's what part of the people for public lands and that have been doing, is trying to bring back those mining districts, because under those mining districts, the miners could hire their own sheriff. the miners could do a lot of things that, like our EPA
Like a city
regulations,
can do.
right? A lot of our EPA regulations and things that exist nowadays literally could be thrown out of the way if the mining district is intact and brought back.
I'd suggest you check your location, Dan, because they say we're getting different information. The Arizona Bureau of Mines and Mineral Resources, back around in the late 80s, said that the lode claim, if staked on open ground, incorporated the placer rights. Chris says something entirely different. Okay. So I presume, like much of other stuff, it all depends on where the hell you're at.
Well, and some patents included the lode and the placer. It was all the mineral rights on a patent.
What do you
So-
check if you own your own land? That's good. How do you find out about the mineral rights?
You'd
and
go
stuff?
to the county and check mineral rights and find out.
County
and-
recorder?
Yep.
County recorder's office.
Yep.
Exactly, Dan. And say these guys kind of make up the rules as they go along, and they change them as they go along. For example, at one time I was told in Arizona by the BLM that no significant disturbance was, and I quote, no chemicals, no explosives,
Mhm.
no motorized earth moving equipment,
Yep.
no engines over 5 horsepower,
Mhm.
and no disturbance over 2 acres.
Correct.
Okay.
Here in Montana, it's 5 acres.
Now, if you dig a hole for a nugget, you got to fill it back in some places. Yep. Yeah, as you can see with Chris here, comes up with another scenario. Things can get very, very complicated.
Well, the original deed on the patent
Yeah, we'll explain
will
it.
explain it usually, but you have to be able to go find that.
Yep.
You're right, Chris, though. There was, I mean, there's a bunch of different scenarios there
Yeah.
that you'd have to do your homework.
You know, nature is complicated. Add people, it gets worse.
Yeah. Well, that's what, Chris is exactly right there, though. If there was known loads already there, the patent, you could only have the placer.
Yeah.
You had no right to the load.
Well, and
So
and Forest Service is different than BLM. Down in Arizona, the Forest Service also considered a Hilti not a hand tool. That's a power tool. Huh? I just want to take some chip samples from a tough rock. No. That's not a bad idea to keep things quiet, but if you own the claim, that's a different, that's a different situation. You fill in the hole, it's tough to get down to the bottom again.
right.
A lot of times you want to keep the hole open. I understand, Chris. I wasn't talking about that one in particular. I was talking about the situation in general. You go to different offices of the exact same BLM, different places, different rules. That's just the way that they're just like in staking a claim. Different rules in Montana and Arizona.
You can have different rules in a county.
Yeah.
To go from this county says they want it on this piece of paper, and this county has a whole different scenario for recording it.
Yeah, Chris, I was told that load originally had the priority over placer. If there was a contest, they would go for the load. Again, I don't know. I don't think anyone knows at this point. It's so confused. It's like, who's running the president of the United States? We don't know. It's very confusing.
True.
The teleprompter in chief.
Yeah. I mean, but that's you have to check with your local regulators to see what regulations they're operating by, because it can change. And they're the guys that are going to write you a ticket or cause you trouble. So they're the ones that you need to keep reasonably happy.
Always assuming they even have regulations that they'll admit to that are in writing that you can even see.
Yeah, a lot of
Well,
times.
that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's how they get away with this, because they never put anything in writing.
Yeah, it's not like, I say, it's not an official regulation
No,
or
they
an official
just dream it
statute.
up as they go.
Yeah.
No, the mining law is congressional authority.
Yeah.
The mining law is the law.
Okay.
The rest of this regulation's bullshit.
Yeah. But
But
law,
you got to do your own homework as to how you fight that.
the thing is, while it may be the law, when a law says you should make, like I think this latest amendment to the mining stuff was no significant disturbance, right?
There's rules for what's significant disturbance,
But not law. The BLM got to determine
No,
what significant
no,
disturbance was.
there is case law on significant disturbance. I got to dig in my notes, but I actually have some sheets that were put out by the Forest Service as to at the time where the case laws were and what they considered significant disturbance. And it's completely different than these arbitrary rules that they
Right.
come up with when you ask them a question.
Yeah, I know.
And case law can change.
Do you have an opinion on spiral gold wheels? Low throughput, and they're very ore specific. They'll work good on some
Yeah.
things and not on others.
Yeah. Not great, Jeff.
On the
If you got good, coarse, heavy placer gold, they'll work pretty well. You'll still find that you have losses. You want to, there's limits to that too. I mean, I've got a nice stainless one, all rubber spiral and that it works, but there's so many better ways to do things and for throughput, just like Keith said, you're much better off with small sluice boxes or whatever, something you can shovel, move material.
and Gold Pandan, in response to your statement, the person who knows is the person who's giving the orders. We just don't know who that is.
Yeah.
Somebody's giving orders somewhere. You don't have that many people of that high a power doing the exact same thing without somebody telling them to do it.
Oh yeah.
Yep. They just can't cooperate naturally. So whenever they're doing the same thing. Gold Pandan, anywhere from so-so to nothing. Okay. If you got pretty darn coarse free milling gold, they can do okay. Anything worse than that, it's not very good. Yep.
Now, better off with a table or something that you can get some separation on.
True, John. Some equals varies. Yep. Nothing's 100%.
No, none of it is. But depending on your ore or the rock, your material in your placer or whatever, certain pieces of equipment are going to be better for you than something else.
Well, we're getting better than 100% on some of ours, which just tells us that the assay is inaccurate.
Yeah.
That happens all the time, Ricky.
Yep, that's normal.
Yep.
Out here you find the same thing because they drill for oil, and we have a lot of other minerals too, phosphate and all kinds of things.
Yeah, Dan, you just have to test your tailings. It may work okay for what you're doing. It may not. There's only one way to find out. Check. They work well on certain things like fine gold, Lake Michigan sand, stuff like that. It worked really good. Up on the Middle Fork of the Boise, I saw a guy cleaning up dredge cons with it. It was doing a great job.
For concentrates, they actually work fairly well. You just want to pay attention to them.
Yeah.
It's not that it's a bad piece of equipment. It's just it has some issues also.
Every piece of equipment has
You know,
limitations.
Yeah, no.
There's nothing that works best or even good for everything.
Right.
You know, it's like, what's the best vehicle to buy? What are you going to do with it?
Right.
You know,
Right.
I'm going to haul stuff on pavement or off road.
Right.
You know,
Right. There's everything enters into that.
and how big are the roads? Like, I've got a nice pickup truck, but that camper really limits what I can do with it.
Right.
On the other hand, you got a nice pickup truck with an empty bed. I don't know if you could get it up where I get the quad to get the ore down. You got to look at the situation, see how things match. Yeah, so my experience with the gold cube has been twofold. You got about 30, maybe 40% on some pretty good free milling quartz ore, and it did really good on dredge cons, Middle Fork, Boise River, flaky gold, like to float. That is correct, John.
I preach that constantly, John. Don't go buying equipment and then going and finding a placer.
Yep.
Find the placer and then worry about what equipment it's going to take to do it correctly.
Can your panning be so bad that you miss everything? What are you getting in the input? You know, and try a somewhat different method of panning. For example, if the real fine gold like I go for will not show up in a normal swirly reveal in panning. It just doesn't work. You have to do a tap and let the other stuff go, sort of thing. And on the other hand, with my panning technique for the microfine gold, the coarser gold will not show up. It'll slide right to the bottom of the pan.
Yeah, it'll keep burying itself.
And so after a while, you get good at checking stuff. Another thing you can do is deliberately salt your feed with various size metal shavings and things like that. Yeah, and see what you're losing, what you're not losing, this, that, and the other. But yeah, you just try different things and see if you can't pick it up doing anything, well, then you're probably in pretty good shape. She's more for silver, Kodak. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I think Eva's got, how many buttons do you got sitting there waiting to be cupelled?
8.
8?
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah, she's been running crucibles. Yeah, and when she cupels, she doesn't get a little micro bead either. She's getting like 0.4 of a gram.
Oh.
This is all resin tests.
Oh. Good.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice to start to see what's there.
Oh yeah. Well, we've been giving the claim owner some beads. She'll get a bunch of beads, various sizes, and then we just melt them down into one. By the way, here's what we found out. If you take one of those little carbon bar molds,
Yep.
the little ones,
Yep.
and we spray mold release on it, although I don't think it's necessary, just
No, because
how poorly it wets the carbon. We just put the gold in there, put it in the furnace at gold melting temperature.
Yep.
And the surface tension on the gold is so high, it won't form a bar. It forms like the little one that we had let's say let me draw it up here. If the groove in the crucible was, not crucible, in the mold, was like this, and we fill it so that theoretically it would be about 6 or 7/10 full when it was melted. We want it with a tic tac like this. It was all at one end, and cross section wise, it was like that.
Loaf,
Yeah,
suck it all together.
yeah. The surface tension is pretty high, at least in small things like that. So it was
Just
kind
a
of funny.
dory bar, so it doesn't matter.
No.
Just as long as it's all intact and you don't have all that fine gold floating around.
And that's pretty pure gold because this is all being
Second,
parted.
third time, yeah.
You know, she's inquarting silver, and then parting, and then this is parting debris that's turned into the little beads, which are then weighed, and then the little beads are just combined into something that's a lot harder to lose. You know. Don't forget about the pan, Chris. Good, Paul. Well, old fence line down one side is the old man's stash under whichever fence post. Then I find the old lady's stash next to the other fence post. I don't know what kind of surfactant works at 1960 degrees, but I don't have any. Besides, it looks cool. It sounds like it's doing pretty good, Jeff. On the other hand, it could just be doing a real good job of capturing one particle size and everything of gold, and the other stuff, if it lost it the first time, it lost it the second time. It's less likely, but it's still possible. I consider it a really important testing tool, Chris. You know, you can do a lot of stuff with a pan. You can't do tonnage.
No.
I would, you know what I want to get? I want to get a Batea pan. I want to see how well it works on microfine gold too. Because, I mean, they're really efficient at processing
Coarse gold,
pounds.
really efficient.
Yeah, I mean, you
can
move
go through
of material.
material fast. Yeah.
Well, it's a pain in a lot of things, Chris. Yep. Say, I do want to get a Batea pan and try it out sometime on microfine gold and see how that works. Because that would be interesting. Because I know it'll work on the coarser gold. So if I had something that would do microfine and the coarser particles, you'd have it all in one thing.
I mean, it's a spiral concentrator, really.
Yeah, it's kind of like
And
a
it's using the gravity
loophole.
separation. Yeah, I mean, it's got a lot of neat things about it.
yeah, Chris.
That's too damn much panning, Chris, for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, a pan is a beginning and an end, but boy, for production at all, no, thank you.
okay. John says, fine gold with small gravels, larger gold with larger gravels.
General rule, but not always true. You can have a lot of fine gold in with the larger gravels too,
Okay.
or you can have coarse gold, flat flakes of gold in with finer sands. So, not always a true statement, but normally if you're digging in a placer, you'll get into bigger cobble or bigger rocks. Usually you'll get into bigger gold.
So it's a good rule of thumb, but sometimes you get a sore thumb, huh?
Yeah. All right. Well,
Take care, Dan.
we've about called it a night here at this point anyway. We're pushing up against 10 o'clock, guys. So
Oh,
All righty. Any other questions here before we call it a night? That's always a dangerous thing to ask.
yeah.
Chris says salute. Little one.
Well,
Thank
thanks
you.
everybody again for some good questions and getting onto some things tonight. So,
At least I'm solving some of the mining
No.
problems.
well,
Still working on the resin problems. That is not correct, Jeff.
No.
Thank you, Shaggy.
Yeah. You guys all have a good week, and
Oh,
we'll come back with some more problems
we'll
and
try and
fun
get a little more
next time.
restful week this week. It is tough mining 4 days a week and milling 3 days a week.
That's pushing it.
Yeah, especially when you're a geezer.
Good night, everyone.
Yep. Good night.